Well, greetings everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Inworld Review. It is the 27th of August already, and it is still 2017, I'm pleased to say. And this is a show where we talk about immersive spaces, social virtual worlds, and in particular the hypergrid. And basically social spaces online where you can collaborate, interact, interoperate, etc., etc. And what's the first stop? Well, I'm going to introduce today's guests. First, welcome beside me, of course, we have James Atloud, who's also busy running our camera system. So thank you, James, and welcome.
It's sure great to be here, Mel. Thank you.
And my two guests this week, I won't say they're unusual, but we're going to have a slight focus today on a social world called Inworlds. That's spelled with a Z on the end. Now, Inworlds is, without going into the inside tech on this not upfront, it runs on a physics engine called Halcyon. It's once originated in the same place as OpenSim, and like various other forks, to put it mildly, has gone its own way, and is one of the grids that actually isn't currently accessible via the hypergrid. But to all intents and purposes, it is a bit like any hypergrid-enabled world, and I suppose it even has commonalities with that grand old Linden world. I mean, Second Life. Not so much with Sansar, but that's another topic of conversation. She's been on the show a few times before, so you'll probably know her. She's CEO of Inworlds, and it's a welcome for Elenor Llewellyn. Welcome, Elenor.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mel, in the middle of my rainstorm.
Yes. Indeed, we do have to warn people that if Anna suddenly departs, and I mean suddenly, it will be because a drop of rain has cut her electricity. Well,
yes.
It sounds absurd, doesn't it? But no, you will be. Our commiserations, by the way, to anybody in Texas at the moment. I will point out that Anna is in Panama. Panama, and it's a different storm. It's a whole different ball game, but it does result in electricity cuts now and again. So,
although I would like to say that to all my friends and everybody in Texas, please stay safe because we just moved from there. So. Our support person, who is my mother, is still up there, and she's literally just outside of the main curtain of it. So stay safe, everybody. So there we go. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Sure. No, you were saying earlier you've been watching videos. You've been watching videos earlier today of places that are no longer there because they've been blown away, kind of thing, and that's awe-inspiring, but also. You may realize that we are at the mercy of Mother Nature so much. Okay, now my second guest is also, he's been around Second Life 2 and everywhere else. I think I first met him at the possibly at Relay for Life, mega events over in Second Life. But he also runs the Relay for Life in Inworlds. Which obviously is separate to an extent from the Second Life but is very, very much the sort of same thing on a slightly smaller scale for the Inworlds grid. And I thought, when he was going to come on last week, I thought, no, we'll put him back to the week Elenor can get here. So we got two people from Inworlds at once. So it's welcome to the show to Dave Finch. Welcome, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, Mel. And yes, it was that first, I think it was in 2011, I think, the marathon in Second Life that we first met. So, yeah, very cool.
And of course, it became a mammoth undertaking, but I remember the days when, we did the telethon on the actual weekend, and, Metaworld, which is me here really, and me and Tara anyway, and then Treat TV and Metaverse TV, and
all the people and
all the so-called
fabulous.
All the so-called competitors were kind of joining in, and it was absolute chaos, but somehow it got done. And unfortunately, the last couple of years, it's just the logistics have become more and more nightmarish. But in a way, the fact, it's good for RFL because we know it just gets bigger and bigger every year. Let me start actually, Bain, because the RFL in Inworlds itself was 2 weekends ago now, wasn't it?
That was the kickoff. We still have 8 more weeks to our season, and we'll be finishing up in late October. I think the 14th is our relay weekend. Yes, the 14th.
Okay. I think James probably has a camera shot on the poster board beside us, which has your logo on it there anyway. So, yes. The dates themselves aren't there. But so that's good. So, in fact, the relay weekend, as it were, as far as the Inworlds version is concerned, is yet to come. So,
oh, yes.
So, my first question was, how much money did you raise? But, of course, if it's still going, you don't know.
Well, I can speak historically,
yeah.
And I can tell you where we are right now. So, that's always fun. Like there is no comparison between SL, the granddaddy of, the mega event and our little relay. But, like in the grand scheme of things, out of, the thousands of relays that are happening out in the real life grid, there's mega ones. There's a few of those, and there's a whole bunch of small ones, and together it all adds up. So, and so I'm just really, really proud of what our folks have done over in Inworlds. With historically 5 years, we've raised 10 million IZZIs, and with online donations that are available, it works out to something like $22,000 US.
Oh, no, that's good.
I'm
good.
Blown away by the warmth and generosity of the people of Inworlds. They're just amazing. And so far this year, we're hit just in 2 weeks, hitting 800,000 IZZIs. And it's just climbing day by day.
I keep realizing there's another virtual currency out there, the Easy. I love it.
IZZIs, yes.
I love my IZZIs.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way,
yeah.
Slight correction, Bane from Calliope. It closes on the 21st.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's right. Well, yeah, our relay weekend is actually going to be on the 14th, but on the 21st we have a special for you, a GT show. So that last week, we're still going to have relay, and then relay's going to run. Teams are still going to be able to fundraise after the season is officially closed. But
of course. Yes.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they've got a pretty big show. I was looking at some of the promo shots for it today that they posted. Ooh, man, can't wait.
Yeah, I know.
And there's a little bit of a personal connection there too, as well, as
there's
to
always.
why. Not for me to announce. It's just that I know that he announced it at RFL. So yeah,
I did forget to mention at the beginning of the show. Those of you who are actually watching at this very moment live on YouTube instead of on replay, which most of you do, of course, if you are watching us live, you can use the chat at Ustream to make comments and even ask questions. And they will usually get to us, within a few minutes. So, do feel involved. We know we're getting an increasing number of live viewers these days. Now it's on YouTube, and often we count the people there and then wonder why the chat room is so silent. You can use it, folks. You can. Genuinely, you can use it. Anyway, I'm going to come back to Bain in a minute or two, because Bain has his own radio show and streaming and stuff like that. But due to the connection volatility, I'm going to switch briefly to Elenor on this, just in case she just vanishes on me.
Go for it.
I think my first question is what's new and what's happening on Inworlds. I mean, let's we don't get you on that often, so maybe an update.
Well, this is always like our busiest season. We're now approaching the busiest part of our actual year as far as events go. We sort of died down over right after our birthday, which is obviously early spring, April 1st. And then we're kind of quiet. We have little things that go on.
Who on earth chose April 1st for a birthday?
Well, come on. There's a little bit of humor there. Think about this. When we sat down and we decided on the birthday, in all seriousness, my actual very first test for Inworlds was February 12th. Just FYI. But with paperwork signing and all that, we decided that April 1st would be our birthday. That was the way that we set it up, and we decided. And yes, there was a sense of humor when we did that. Yes, we had one. So anyways, but yeah, we go kind of quiet after that. Now we're into where we're getting ready for our Fall Fest. And our Fall Fest will include all the way up through Halloween. Then we have just a couple weeks and we start getting ready for the whole Toys for Tots and the Christmas bash that goes on, and our New Year's thing that we do on IDI. And by that time, EC is ready to collapse, and then she's got to get ready for the whole birthday bash, because it's just nonstop. From now until right after our birthday, she will be nonstop. Although she's having some personal stuff, so she's taking some personal time off. So really, Astoria and Old Soul and a couple of others are sort of picking up the reins for her while she gets some real life stuff sorted out. But as a volunteer, what do you expect? They've got to have a real life too, so it's all good. So I want to wish her all the best while she's getting her stuff together. But they're rolling forward with Fall Fest as it is. I'm just sort of providing some guidance when they ask me for it. Yeah, go ahead, do that. Yeah, you can go do that. That's all good. But yeah, this is going to be our busiest time of the year now. From here on out, we will just have all sorts of events. Of course, RFL is going on, which will tie in really nicely because that sort of does the lead up into our Fright Fest that goes at the end of October, and then leads into we have a little bit of a Thanksgiving thing there, which isn't much, but it leads right into the Christmas thing. So.
You mentioned one, Toys for Tots. That's another fundraiser, I presume, isn't it?
We do that every year for Christmas. Yes, we do it. It's every year we do a Toys for Tots fundraiser. It's a big auction that we actually do, and it runs for like a week. And the thing about the auction is that everything is custom, so you can't just go to somebody's store afterwards and go buy it. It's a custom-made item for the actual auction, so you can only get it at the auction. Like we've had ornaments, jewelry, horses from Oyo. They do a lot of breedables for the donation for the auction, particular breeds, so that they're only for the Toys for Tots donation. Yeah, we just have a whole bunch of stuff. Of course, all the Sims get done up, and they're all made pretty, and you can walk around. And I love going through and seeing the different creativity, because every year it's something different. Every year I walk through those Sims, and I'm just like, wow, I'm always amazed by the depths of the creativity that our builders have for the whole event. It's mind blowing. It really is. You would think that they would reach the end of their creativity at some point in time. They just keep going. They just keep going.
Oh, they're obviously all young whippersnappers who haven't drained of their creativity yet, like some of us.
The funny thing is that most of our population really isn't young whippersnappers.
No.
Most of it's basically like my age and up, and I'm basically middle aged. So, really, their creativity knows no bounds. Seriously, it's absolutely fantastic to see when I go there. And I mean, I tend to go I sneak in, because here's what's happened. Ellie logs into the grid, and then she's bombarded with about 70,000 things. So when people see that I take pictures and whatnot, and suddenly I'm posting them on Facebook and whatnot. Well, the reason is because I sneak in, like either super early in the morning before anybody's on, or really late at night, one or the other. Yeah. I log in, and I very secretly go through before the festivities actually open up, and I start taking pictures. That's what I do.
Yeah,
that honestly is the key. I mean, it's like you will know this, Bane. I mean, one of the most wonderful relay events in Second Life, which I would almost make a exception to the rule of staying away from Second Life for, is Fantasy Fair, because it's always wonderful. But once it's opened, you'll never get me there, because the lag, it's
insane, absolutely insane. Yes.
But if I can get in beforehand, say some video snapshots, then that's what I want to do. It's the same out here on the hypergrid, Mm-hmm. If some grid is putting on an expo or something like that, I can get older and say, let me in the week before, and I'll try.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get my promo stuff done now while it's not a lag fest. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you bring for relay, and I suppose Toy for Tots and the other thing? Do you bring special regions online for these events?
Yes, we do.
Do you do this, or does Eleanor bring them on for you? And
Well, it's okay. Let's back up. It's when I arrived in Inworld, it just happened to be right at the time that this group was starting to think about launching Relay.
Yeah.
And and everybody that was on the team, just oddly, none of them were SL relayers, or if they had, it was a long time ago, and I had just freshly came off a relay for in SL, and I arrived in Inworlds for hey, I want to join and help you guys out, blah blah blah, and I just like, okay, cool, right on. So it happened, and I looked at the grid and made a really quick assessment on size and population, blah blah blah, and I thought of, we need to scale down the SL template, because it's just it just overwhelmed these guys. Just let's get it down to the bare bones, the essential parts of relay, and we started building this relay up from there. And so in the 5 years, it's grown and grown. The first year we had 2 sims, and that was donated through auspicious circumstances, and I thank all the participants of that so much, because that helped us so much that first year.
Yeah.
And then the second year, we got the sponsorship going, managed to get 2 sims online for a relay track. The second year was 3 sims. The fourth year, I think we had 4 sims that year. The fifth year, the 2x2s came online, so let's get 2 2x2s. So we went with 8 sims, and we're growing, we're learning, and so this year we're going to use a combination of 2x2s and full sims. And so yeah, it's definitely grown, and I just love how everybody has contributed and made it Inworld's relay, and I'm just so proud of everybody. So proud.
That's interesting, because I don't know, but it just occurs to me now that I think my natural assumption would have been that the relay people in Inworlds would probably have been, like Inworlds immigrants who knew the relay.
Many of them are. Many of them are, and over time too. Some of the folks of Second Life relay have come over, and they're doing teams over here too. We're not trying to pull from that resource, or work subversively or anything like that. We're just here having a relay, making noise, and people are coming along and saying, yeah, I gotta go check it out and hang out. And
I'm told that your in-world mic actually may be muted. Fortunately, it doesn't matter.
Yes,
it doesn't matter for the broadcast.
Yes, it did. It did get off. Sorry.
It meant your lips were moving, which is one of those curiosities. You see, in virtual worlds, your lips don't move if your mic's not on.
They're really stitched together, and we're like zombies. That's what it is.
I know. Now, coming back to you in that. Oh, I've lost my train of thought again already. As I said at the beginning, I know there was a bit of interconnectivity with our other worlds and things here as well. Firstly, and I'll come to this again when I'm sure we've still got the fact that Bain does broadcasting, and of course when a radio show can be picked up on in any world, including any hypergrid enabled world. It's not limited to Inworlds. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But I mentioned in the intro to the show that Inworlds is actually a closed grid. This is, I think, in some ways this is more accident design, because, I'm going to get corrected in a minute, I'm sure. But Inworlds actually, how many years was it your last birthday?
Our last birthday, 8 years. We're going on 9 now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Inworlds has been around. I suppose some people saw it as a sort of alternative to Second Life in some ways, more prims, better rates for land and stuff like that. And when Inworlds first came on, I imagine your first ever version, I guess, was regular Open Simulator, wasn't it, before you built Halcyon?
Yes, the everything that we started off with was original OpenSim 0.6.8.
Yeah.
Actually 0.6.5.
Right. But of course, in those days, this was before Krista concocted the hypergrid, which really just changed everything.
Yeah.
And so there was no impetus for you, as you went ahead with the Halcyon Fork and stuff, to actually really include the hypergrid. There were early issues about IP protection and stuff like that. But more than that, it wasn't something on the table when you started. Whereas for a lot of grids coming online these days, it's there on the table, and they think, "Oh, I've got to be on the hypergrid, haven't I?" But I don't know whether you're familiar with this. We've talked about them quite a lot on this show recently, but there is a group started up called the IMA. I was referring to them on the news earlier. Called that. It stands for the Infinite Metaverse Alliance.
But yes, I've heard of it.
You have, and they've been the people from Moses, for one thing, who of course used Halcyon, or their variation of Halcyon, I'm told the other day, are sort of on the fringes of that, although Doug, isn't it, has left the military. So Moses itself is in abeyance, where it gets a new civilian name, as it were.
Pretty much, yes.
But
in a nutshell, how's that?
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if you'd been noticing the IMA and it had spoken to anybody there, because their remit, I think, their remit is actually only ever use open source kind of thing and the open metaverse, but that isn't, how can I say it? Let's take, you might have Science Space and High Fidelity. Or something, two social worlds that are also wall gardens and don't really seem to have anything common except what they are, if you see what I mean. And Inworlds not being on the hypergrid could be considered like that, and yet the remit is to sort of stay open to interoperability there, because just because you got a hypergrid to Inworlds or High Fidelity or Science Space doesn't mean that those platforms can't entertain tools that will allow things like chat and communication systems to interoperate. You could have a HUD that has is a HUD in each of the platforms that communicates to a back end that links them all together, for example. So there are degrees of interoperability where the fact that you can't just hypergrid somewhere is not the final obstacle any more than it's an obstacle to tuning into a radio. It's so I was wondering if you'd actually shown any interest there and had any thoughts on what you've heard about them.
Okay, I did a little bit of research on them after I'd heard about Moses and Doug stepping down and doing his own thing, which kudos to him, because I know that he had gone through some trials and tribulations there, especially when the funding was always a massive battle for him. As far as the IMA goes, I don't really have nobody has bothered to contact Inworlds. Obviously, with our code being out there, Halcyon being, open source, you bring up a good point. I'm kind of surprised nobody has done this, actually. Since the code is open source, there's nothing stopping anybody from taking OpenSim and taking Halcyon and saying, let's create a chat HUD between the different platforms. We're not that, as far as chatting goes, we've made a lot of strides in it, but there's nothing to stop somebody from actually creating something like that. We're not telling anybody that they can't do this. I think my biggest thing that I see, and I have to think of the proper way to say this. I think the biggest thing that I see is that there is a waning of interest in the open source platform of these worlds, whether it's OpenSim or Halcyon, because I'm not trying to pick on either platform here. I think there is a waning of interest in there. And that's something that really is up to us as the grids to maybe sort of help to spur back onto track again. I don't have a foolproof plan for that. Maybe IMA does. I don't know, but as I say, I've not heard from them. But I think that there's definitely room for people who want to pick up both platforms and put some joining together that they could. I'm not saying hypergrid functionality. I think that's going to take a long time, obviously. Yeah. And Inworld has absolutely no desire whatsoever at this point to really jump into that boat and say, let's do that. But there are definitely things that we've got the P-chat and whatnot that we use for our grid that you can talk to people offline using our P-chat code. Although I don't know if that's actually open source because David did that. But there is opportunity for people to actually do that. And that doesn't mean that you can't make money off of it either. We just have to find the right people who have the tenacity to want to pour through both code bases and find a way to link the two of them. Sharing pictures. Yeah. Obviously, we already have the Dream Share. We have the Twitter stuff, things that can be just posted socially. Those things can be used as well. I mean, there's a lot of when you mention it, my brain obviously starts to go off in its own little direction because that's what I do.
I know that. Oh, you get something. I know that. Somebody mentions something. I think, oh, now I've had an idea. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. So I mean, I think there's a lot of room there, and it would be neat to see somebody who could actually bring that together. That Inworld. I've always said this many times because I get bombarded with the question, why don't you have your own marketplace? There's a reason. We didn't want to see what happened in the past with the marketplace happen. We wanted to give that to our customers and say, you guys do it. There's nothing like competition. If somebody else can, I remember back in the old days when we first started, we had a couple of different marketplaces, but competition always will drive them out. It'll drive the way it goes. It's just the way it is. And now we have a really great marketplace that's being run and it's doing a fantastic job. And I think that somebody who was entrepreneurial enough could take the two code bases and probably throw together something that was pretty gosh darn cool for people to feel like they could talk to each other and not be on separate grids.
I think this is something. I mean, it's early days yet, and a lot of people are doing the wait and see thing, or there's obviously people who are apprehensive about anything new coming along. But to me, the IME seems to be, firstly, it tends to discuss and plan out things based on what users want. And some of them come from a disability background. So obviously they've always had this thing about, usability of interfaces and things like that. So that's a key focus. But they've got a lot of active working groups. I mean, for example, there's the the World on the Prim working group. And there are actually 3 separate projects, from what I gather, to bring, a lightweight interface to the web where you can log into a virtual world. Some of them have to be built on the web. And in fact, they all do at the moment. But there are thoughts about the way there could be a kind of plug-in viewer for the web that can actually plug into existing grids. Maybe you'll be able to log in as a guest or, and you'll be able to go to an event, you'll be able to sit, trot around. You won't be able to build or do anything like that. But, it will be a gateway. And, if you're on Facebook, for example, which I tend to avoid, but, you've got lots of Facebook friends, you would actually be able to post a link to tell people to visit you in your region or come to your party. And because that Facebook link will be a website with an embed code for a viewer, then you will possibly be able to bring more people into the experience for the first time than ever do these days. Because, I've got to download a client and I've got to learn this, that, and t'other,
Did you miss our lovely little video of a web viewer in action on the Halcyon grid, on the Moses grid?
Oh, yeah, I did. I've got a clip of that. In fact, oddly enough, I have the clip. Sorry.
That work has already... Really, that was a fully web-based viewer.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know if that code is released. I would have to talk to David. David is the one who did that code. So here's what I'm going to suggest. And this always seems to fly in the face of everything open sim, and I don't know why. I know we get bashed on because of our prices and whatnot. I've never raised our prices. Can't really lower our prices. We're pretty well priced where we need to be to pay our bills, etc. But here's the thing. There's a bunch of this code already done and written. But the simple fact of the matter is the things that the metaverse needs and wants, and I say that as Inworld, as OpenSim, as everybody who is involved in this ecology, this great big pool of here we are, what it needs, which is, yes, a web viewer, most definitely, simplified web viewer, that would make life easier for everybody, right? But you have to have the developers who can actually do it, and they still have to pay their bills. And that's what it boils down to. I would love to see somebody in the metaverse say, we're actually going to be willing to sit down and we're going to pay a developer what needs to be paid to get this done. Because relying on volunteers is not going to get it done. This is the unfortunate part and part of the problem in and of itself.
I actually kind of agree, although, you know, the volunteer community that builds a lot of this stuff is actually crucial.
They are, but on the flip side, they can't really handle the ins and outs of it.
There've often been these offshoot projects and things, and like the core vanilla OpenSim developers and things are very reluctant, you know, we don't want to get paid, it would compromise our integrity, or actually, but I'm just working on my own little avenue and then contributing code, and they don't like the idea, you know, of actually getting anywhere for what they do. But there's been a lot of disconnect in the past, but actually there does seem, James, I think, will attest to this because he goes to developer meetings and reports on them for us. Since the IMA came along, the IMA does seem to have entered the developers' radar, doesn't it, James, in a way that some other things haven't.
Yeah, I think so, and I think just the way that IMA has positioned itself as really recommending but not requiring, I think is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, the emphasis seems to be on getting people talking, and the working groups. You know, some of these working groups, I mean, they undoubtedly have access to all the halcyon stuff that Moses develops, for example. Maybe that's what, maybe David or whoever it is in the WebWorlds working group or something, which isn't.
David is my business partner.
Right. You'd have to ask him. But is yours? I don't know. But it's okay. But the idea is, you know, I certainly see, you know, sort of three competing web platforms in their working group, and the fact that they're competitors does not seem to be stopping them developing their own projects, yet still being in the working group where they're discussing things with each other. So I think what seems to be happening is it's fulfilling this kind of, you know, it's like, you know, it's not commercially driven itself, although there's nothing to stop it, you know, having commercial projects. But it's a bit like a business society. You know, there's a federation of small business owners or something, for example, in the UK. And, you know, there are undoubtedly these societies for, you know, the Society of Newsagents. Right. And you know, these are venues where competing shops or competing companies, the people in charge of them sort of get together behind the scenes and talk shop, even though they're still aware that they're competing. And I think maybe there's an element of this in the IMA. It's sort of attracting people who want to talk shop and maybe collaborate on certain things with it, you know, but they're still keeping a lot of their own things under wraps, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So, you know, I think it's a sort of middle ground that, you know, I'm quite happy about. But of course, the reason I mention it is that as well as the Moses, the work Moses did on Halcyon, I know the IMA are actually running the Halcyon code. They basically got test grids, and they're running every conceivable code variant they can to compare them and analyze them and see what works best on particular ones. So, you know, Halcyon is best for this, this, and this, and you know, Ubit ODE or something is best for this and this, and OpenSim 9 series is better for some things, but stick with 8 series for other things. They're doing all this sort of simultaneously, so you don't see them. I mean, possibly apart from the news this week about the Cuckoo reviewer taking it over as an open source, you know, OpenSim only project. They, you know, you don't see them sort of carrying a flag that says anything other than collaborate, you know, you know, a kind of umbrella. You know, they put themselves in an umbrella position, and they said from the start, right, you know, this is non-interference stuff. You know, we're not coming up and saying, oh, we're going to develop this code and put the core developers out of business, or we're going to do this client viewer and put the viewers out of business. It's there's been nothing to indicate anything like that. They just seem to want to get lots of things addressed and pull the various parties that are addressing them together, because sometimes people are working out on a limb on a bit of code or something, and they'll maybe submit it somewhere when they've finished it, but this gives them an opportunity to, you know, come into a slightly greater overview than just something you get with the core developers.
Excuse me, Mal. I just want to point out we've got, first of all, we've got between 19 and 25 viewers on the stream right now. And then we have a comment on the stream from that to the effect that the IMA is a bit of a mess, been trying to figure out how to engage them. 49 plus working groups, and it's impossible to tell if anyone's actually getting anything done. And I can certainly understand that comment. I think it's still very much organization and formation. Would you agree with that?
Well, we want to take it from an outsider who tried to do research on IMA.
Yeah.
There is no organization. I went to their site. I went to their branch sites. I found every person who was involved in the IMA through various other different links that I had to go through in order to research who they were. Their website gives, I know about the fact that they have the test grids, but they have no links about information as to what they're finding, what they're doing, what their purpose is. They don't even have a mission statement on their main IMA website. So it's very difficult when I'm sitting here and I've already heard that it was turned over to the IMA to have any kind of feedback other than, okay, well, who's the IMA, right? And so I start searching, and there really isn't any information, and obviously nobody's contacted, you know, us, and that's, so if you want to say there's disorganization, sorry, I can't speak. Boy, howdy, would I have to agree with that, because I'm sorry, when I did my research, I was not something that I felt I had enough information to make any decision on.
I think, I mean, actually, maybe you should, if you had time, pop along to the Wednesday open house things. It keeps changing grids, but I could find out for you, because they welcome anybody coming in and commenting or whatever. But as James said, you know, they actually went live with the project earlier than they intended to. I do know that, but once the news was out, they thought, well, go with it. But it is true, you know, a lot of people take a wait and see attitude before getting involved with anything there. And, you know, it is formative times. Apparently, you know, some of the working groups are in more or less name only at the moment, but other ones are actually for the people working on specific things. It's as far as I can tell, you've got Steve Levine and Lisa Paxton tend to be the principals that seem to be coordinating things. I know Barbara from Moses, who's taking over the Moses project, is heavily involved too. I've seen a couple of people from Avacon, you know, coming over there from time to time, but it does, it has that feeling of a sort of loose collective. And as you say, I think some of the formalities of its structure have yet to be kind of sorted out. But it certainly seems to be very effective as a talking shop and a discussion forum. And in some cases, actual working groups, you know, started and doing things. So, you know, like everything, I think, you know, most people just say wait and see. But even if you're waiting and seeing, in my case, I used to try and make their weekly meeting just to keep up with what's going on and, you know, put my say in. But yeah, I mean, that's probably enough for the IMA, unless we've got any particular questions, because it's you know, it is something, it seems to me, that by intent, you know, is certainly looking, it's certainly running Halcyon on the test grid. one of the test grids, and it certainly has its eyes open beyond what you might call vanilla open sim. So when it comes to interoperability of any sort, I think it's it could have its eyes on Inworlds as much as any other things. The only thing they don't want eyes on, it seems, is Linden Labs. It's like they'd be written off as.
I don't think Linden Labs would join. Just I watched the moves from Linden Labs over the years, and especially in respect of viewers and whatnot. Yeah, I'm going to say we could all probably whistle Dixie in Chinese, waiting for Linden Labs to join up and say, "Hey, let's help you guys out."
Yeah,
just my own personal viewpoint.
Yeah. Have you perchance endeavored to try and enter the thing called Sansar yet?
I checked on Sansar many, many moons ago, but see, I have a lot of friends who have actually tried it, so I've heard a lot about Sansar, and I have creators who are doing creating up there and whatnot. I don't have a VR headset.
No,
and
so do I.
I have absolutely no desire to buy a VR headset. And I know that, we've had many internal conversations amongst the devs and myself and our customers as well. And here's the thing, I'm going to go off on a tangent here because I like to go off on tangents. I remember playing Guild Wars 2, and Guild Wars 2 was hailed as a 3D game. And I don't know if you ever played it or not, but Guild Wars 2 is a 3D game. And I had a 3D monitor, and I had the 3D glasses. It was cool for all of 30 minutes, and then I got annoyed by it.
Yeah.
I took the glasses off.
I bought one of those Google cardboard things. That's the closest to a headset I've got. And I stuck my own phone in it. After 15 minutes, the phone was roasting. But more than that, I got it. I saw what it was about. I kind of liked it. Took the phone out to cool off and put the cardboard on the shelf. And, it's been on the shelf ever since. And
right.
I don't know how many inches of dust are on it,
Here's my problem. Unless you're a really, really big, true gaming geek of that type of person, all right, the people trying to get the general population, I'm not talking about like your artists or you're disabled, etc. I'm talking about the general population where this has to be sold into, right? Yeah. Trying to get them to put something on their head to wear for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours on a consistent basis is not going to happen.
Yeah. What you said about the 3D game that you were talking about is typical because, look at the glasses. There were two different types of glasses and two variants on the either of a 3D television set.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody wanted one and they got these glasses. But, a couple of movies later, that's it.
Yeah.
Who wants to sit around with friends wearing these dorky glasses watching in 3D.
If you're not used to wearing something there, you automatically reject it because it's not something you're used to having on your body. That's just the way we are as human beings.
Until they come up with a hollow space you walk into, boom, you're in a 3D environment.
Right.
It's not going to happen on a general population.
Well, I think, a lot of people are working on the holodeck principle where you're not in a helmet, you're in multiple, you're in a certain amount of, you've got a certain amount of fixed floor space, but the floor, the walls, and the ceiling are all, video projection kind of thing. But well,
actually, Xbox is working on that.
I think I'll go well beyond that.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen? You've seen the patent for Xbox for Microsoft to do exactly that, right? Project around on your walls and your furniture your entire basic holodome.
Well, what seems to be happening, and this is only my view on it from reading the news every week, is that Oculus, then Vive, and then every HTC, everybody has now brought their headset prices down considerably because they can't sell them anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
All the hardcore gamers have already got them, the one of their choice. And the mass public aren't really interested.
No.
Full stop. So maybe by the holiday season, when they're only $50 each, they might buy them. They don't know. But the thing that is taking off, however, is things like Oculus used in research laboratories by scientists who can get to depths where they never get before. and out of home VR arcades that are being built with huge spaces where multiple participants can be in VR. So it's like a special thing you go out to on a Saturday night, like you went to a game arcade of once upon a time. So that side of it does actually seem to be taking off. That's where the hype,
and that's a good side. So
that's where the breakthroughs will happen.
Yeah.
Yes, because what has to happen is that technology has to be minimized. So remember back in the day when we were all much younger, and how many of us spent hours playing in front of Pac-Man at the bowling alley?
Not me.
Actually, I didn't, but I know plenty who did. So yeah.
Asteroids, Pac-Man, whatever. You went to the bowling alley, or you went to your local arcade store, and you played for an hour or two playing your arcade games. But then what happened? Atari came out.
Yeah, the console.
The console came out. They suddenly were able to take that great big game that you would go play at, and they put it into a little console that fit in your TV stand. And then what happened? Commodore happened.
Yeah.
Commodore came out with these nice personal little computers that you could sit on your desk. You couldn't do much because it was all basic, obviously, right? I mean, I had one when I was 13, so I remember. Yeah. And they were all black and white, and but they were good for basic things. But that introduced the people to computers. But more importantly, it introduced companies to it. So here's the problem. Right now we have VR headsets that we know are clunky, lunky. Nobody wants to wear them. But you need to get this into the hands of the mass population before it will become accepted. Look at the internet, AOL. Yeah. Everybody wants to bring up AOL. AOL went on this huge marketing campaign with simple little CDs. Hello, who remembers the commercial with the goldfish made on the wall? All right. But they put the internet in the hands of the people. That's what they did. So when you can take this technology and give them something simple and small, that like I was so bummed when Google Glass was canceled, because I thought that was a great way to bring VR in just a normal pair of glasses.
It is back, and Microsoft are working, and I think
I was just going to say Microsoft, perfect example, giving away DOS, giving away 3.1.
Exactly.
The only thing on the market, or not on the market, that I can consider my using at the moment, right, is I'm wearing spectacles to read, right? Anyway, right?
I do too.
Right? If I could have a pair of spectacles that did not have a CPU in them, but were nice and lightweight and had changeable opacity and allow me to see two overlapping screens in front of my eyes. Yeah. Either augmented reality with transparency or full opacity for virtual worlds. But I want to be able to plug that into the iPhone or whatever in my pocket. Let that do the processing. Just as, if I want to listen to music while I'm walking around, I plug my headphones in, but the music's playing in my iPod, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I certainly would not object to a pair of glasses that I can wear as a big size monitor in front of my eyes. But
that'd be perfect.
I don't want all the hardware and I wear glasses is bad enough. Anything that add extra weight to my spectacles drives me out the wall.
Yeah.
A little Bluetooth chip that could actually read from your phone, and you can pick up your bookmarks and everything else right out of your glasses and read what you want to watch, like for simple, internet connection. Yeah. That shouldn't be that heavy.
You see, then I think you've got something whose manufacturing cost in bulk, at least, will probably not be too much, and it would come down. And it was
you want to know something?
If somebody goes
hold that thought, Mal. Hold that thought. I have some friends who work on the hearing aid side of the world because, hearing aids for old population are definitely a big business. They have these devices that people wear that are Bluetooth connected to everything in your house, your telephone, your TV.
I've seen those.
Your alarm system in the house, your alarm on your bed, everything. And you basically interface with all your technology in your house through this device, so that you can hear it. Marry that with your thought of the glasses. Yeah. Boom, you have it.
If people are quite happy to buy a pair of sunshades.
Yeah.
Even if they don't wear glasses, because they're lightweight, they're ubiquitous things. They have a function. If it's something you can just slip in your pocket and pull out when you want it and travel with, especially in this mobile tech age.
Oh, definitely.
That's another ball game. But we're a few years away from, I think, people bringing these at the right price to market and coming up with the catchline that will attract the mainstream audience. At the moment, it's the downward spiral of headsets, and except for like arcades, and most of them are going for the Vive one, which has room sensors or whatever. I mean, it's totally changing. But oddly enough, we got into that conversation. we're quite happy to pursue it.
Love it.
But you mentioned that in relation to Sansar. Now, high fidelity is the one I have a problem with, because if you're in high fidelity and you want to make a friend, right? It's not easy to look them up. So what you have to do is be in the same place, and then you have to walk over to them and shake their hands. Now, if you're not in a headset, how the hell are you meant to shake hands?
Right.
Now, there is I was actually told that there's a keystroke if I'm on the 2D screen that will mimic a handshake and therefore send the person you're shaking hands with a friend offer. So it is possible, but it's cantankerous. And I can't even remember what that keystroke is now, because it's another platform, another keystroke system,
Right?
But Sciencebase and Sansar, I will say, seem to be easily usable on a TD screen. I think High Fidelity has made the mistake of gambling on those, the hardcore gamers who have got headsets. Yeah. And I think
the problem with that gamble, and this is it, from a hardcore gamer chick right here, right?
Yeah.
You are not going to get hardcore gamers into Sansar, Second Life, Inworld. You're not going there. This is not the platform they're interested in. End of story.
I don't see those as games, they're environments.
Absolutely.
You have to understand, your hardcore gamer is a min-maxer. Your hardcore gamer is somebody who takes a character and they level it up and they level it up and they work for all the best gear and they work for all this. You give them something like this, and here's the first question I always hear. What do I do here?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, we are very two different kinds of space. Some of the technology is shared. I mean, arguably virtual worlds probably would never have existed as we know them now if games hadn't pioneered the way.
For sure.
But, it's just like, let me see. There's a commonality to
there is
a Microsoft product.
Taking a step back, I can't see why the hypergrid couldn't tie in with all these game.
Well, we have.
And it's starting, but there's if you just log into one environment and decide, okay, I'm going to go over to Inworld or the GGC or whatever grid and hang out with some friends, and hey, let's all log into World of Warcraft or whatever, and let's and then back here or there, and that day will come. I'm sure.
When we're doing the hypergrid safaris on Wednesdays, I mean, the person likes to get a mix of something educational, something fun, and something arty maybe. And this is actually the beauty of the hypergrid. I mean,
I have my shows like this into them too.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, although I'm in here and this is where I'm in public, I have a server running on the same desktop. Oddly enough, it uses no resources, and it's running my own grid on my own desktop. And I'm hypergrid enabled, but I don't take people in. A friend can pop over.
It's your launch portal.
Yeah. But I go out, I get inventory, and everything comes back into my own computer. And so I'm not dependent on Great Canada Grid or any other grid staying around. I'm just dependent on the hypergrid still existing and having destinations somewhere.
Right.
But many of those destinations sometimes run on people's own computers or old computers doubling as servers. Yeah. Others are actually running from proper servers, online. But many of them, there's many of them that are strictly role play, and probably by most categories will be, considered 90% game rather than social experience or whatever you call it. And the beauty of that, though, is I can get together with Safari and we can go and visit and immerse ourselves in the game for an hour, and then we're out of there. We're not fully immersed in that game as a platform. We're not game players. We're just spending an hour visiting a venue, and oh, they've got a game we can play. How fun, you know.
Yeah.
And then we're out of there. And that is the beauty of the way it's structured, because, you know, there can be a whole grid. In fact, I think there are about 3 different grids on the hypergrid that Harry Potter builds. Incredibly detailed work. I mean, it's very popular, you know, but one is strictly a recreation of the literary phenomenon, inspired by the films too. The other, you know, is role play, or another is definitely role play. And another really, well, is role play too, but, you know, you play it as a game. You play it as a character from the books.
Right.
So, you know,
it is enabling people to make up their own environment. That is so cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, we've actually been talking, you'll laugh at this, Elenor, because you run a grid, but, you know, Pathfinder disagreed with me, but I was having a chat with Pathfinder here a few weeks ago about, now I'm experiencing it, running your own grid offline. I say offline, but it's on the hypergrid, right? Is you always know it's a good idea, but until you do it, you don't realize just how much of a good idea it was. And I suddenly thought, well, could we get a future where OpenSim is actually a lot of computers running their own regions connected by the hypergrid? And, you know, presumably there'd be still a few commercial grids for you to hypergrid to if you wanted, but maybe they, in the same way that the metaphor in Second Life for owning land, in OpenSim, it comes more of owning regions rather than owning a house on a region.
And they're just all connected, and you just walk from one region to another.
Because on OpenSim, generally it's cheaper. People can only afford a square foot of parcel in Second Life, can probably afford a region on OpenSim. But then you get to the idea that you can run your own grid, and then you've got an endless region. You've got a whole grid of your own, and that's your launch point onto the hypergrid. And psychologically, it makes a lot of difference, because suddenly I'm in one all the while, because I can hypergrid out, I can bring back things to the central repository, I can coordinate things easily on my own computer rather than depending on going to this grid and that and stuff. But Pathfinder disagreed, because he said, you know, it's a bit like the headset argument we were making a minute ago. Pathfinder says that it's easy for me and him to think, yay, this is the way it should go. But in reality, OpenSim and Second Life and all the rest are full of users, inverted commas, users. They don't really want to, you know, if they're in high, want to change. if they're in high fidelity, which without a headset would be, it's probably not the easiest of things. They actually, high fidelity installs a sandbox on their own machine. So in fact, their home location in high fidelity is actually on your own machine. But it's seamless. You don't think of yourselves installing a server or anything else. That's actually done by the viewer when you install it. It runs the server side by side with the viewer. So, you know, you go to a public meeting based on high fidelity, and then it ends and you click home. Home is actually taking you back onto your own machine where you can actually build things and do stuff. You're not actually on any of Philip Rosedale's servers when you're building stuff on your own region. You're on your own machine. But of course, what they've done is they've made it seamless. But as Pathfinder pointed out, you know, unless it's seamless, people won't take to that at all, because it's much easier for them to go to a commercial grid, register as a free user, and beg a bit of land, you know, because there's plenty of free land available even on the commercial grids for starters, you know. But you know, the metaphors we adopt do change. You know, it's like I've always wanted to get rid of the desktop metaphor and think, you know, instead of a desktop, I want to think of spaces. You know, starting a room, I go to the next room, I go to the next room, not icons on the desktop. So you know, but you know, if the arcade thing, you know, really takes off, people will at least get used to experiencing it. And as you point out with the consoles, then maybe they'll think, well, I keep going to this arcade every week and it's costing me a fortune. Now, I wonder if there's anything I can get at home that I can use, you know. And maybe that's where a change will come, for example.
Yeah, well, it's like all things, all change always starts with a conversation. And these are all important conversations to have.
let me move on. We're certainly filling up time here. So I said I would come back to this. And I'm glad Eleanor is stable. I
am. Yeah, this is really good.
But she'll probably vanish when I switch to you. But never mind.
Yes, everybody knock on wood, please, before I go boom.
Yes.
Not gonna happen.
I'd like to hear a bit more about. I think we covered relay. There's only so much you can say, really, but worthy calls and everything. But of course, you're a broadcaster too, and I imagine to some extent, your broadcasting connects with relay. But maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about your broadcasting operation, which, of course, radio can be received in any world. Can probably be received in the real world too, for that matter.
That's right. Yeah, I'm just streaming, a regular DJ service, and I'm just using virtual audio cables to bring people in on Skype, just very much like we're doing right here. I don't have the video component going out to the web, but I'm just streaming, that into my relay events that I'm doing on the Inworld grid.
Yeah.
Anybody with that URL of the stream can put it up on their local computer and their favorite media player and listen in.
And indeed, their favorite in their region.
Or get into the region or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
To what extent, while you're DJing and choosing music, and presumably you're talking to the audience, especially in something like when there's like a relay going on, to what extent do you promote or engage with virtual worlds as a radio broadcaster? In terms of, I'll give you an idea here. Is I always say that, we do TV because it's a quick way of bringing this sort of stuff to an audience. But, if only 1 in 100 viewers thinks that's interesting, where can I get the viewer for that place? Then it's a win. If it's 1 in 100, even better. So, I always like to think somehow that when I'm sitting here now and we're talking, we're not having a great conversation and hopefully interesting viewers, but there might be some viewers out there who've never watched us before and think this conversation is interesting, but that place is kind of interesting too,
Yes.
How much do you feel when you've got your DJ hat on, as it were, that you're talking to an in-world audience or an out-world audience or an out-world audience that you're trying to bring in-world, if you see what I mean?
I know the distinction that you're trying to get to. I'm mostly at the moment doing the in-world thing to my, closed audience at the event sim, and whoever else is listening in on our local sim on the grid. I'd love to, and they're working on a possibility of creating an in-world radio station, working with a gentleman on that possibility. And, so that, we're covering in-world very much like you would be covering the Metaworld as well. So to bring focus in on the great people that are over there in in-worlds, doing some amazing things, and entertaining them and providing information and doing everything that a radio show does. And I'm trying to work towards that. So so then I would be at that point moving to the external and trying to entice outworld people to come by. And and then the next part of that would be the video component, because the video component is what online people first see, and they see this, they see us right now, and hey, what they're talking about is really cool, and they're gonna, I'm gonna go check out Inworlds, I'm gonna go check out the Great Canadian Grid or the OS Grid or whatever, and see what it's all about. So, and that's...
There's a reason
we're slowly doing over there and stuff like that.
I mean, radio has some very unique features that make it still valid. And, I can actually tell you from speaking to, on the Hypergo Safaris, wandering around to some of our viewers of this show, most long since stopped watching it live because they will just load it in their own time and own space, which is the beauty of replays on YouTube or live stream. But more to the point, I will talk to people and they say, well, they pick it up every Monday morning or Monday afternoon or something. And
That's right. Yeah.
switch it on and watch it. But then they'll say to me, and I leave it on and listen while I do the housework.
Yeah.
And what they are doing is they're not watching, they're listening. Because it works just as well as audio. I mean, if you watch this for 3 hours of the show and all you see are the same talking heads, it must get a bit boring. But if the conversation is there, you don't have to keep your eyes glued to it.
That's right.
It really is, it's an expression I often use.
Yeah, it's not like we're breaking out to the break dance or anything.
Yeah,
I
used to have some fancy sort of psychedelic flashy made with flash things that I put on the web years ago, back, before the turn of the century probably. And I put musical sort of soundtracks and stuff behind them because I figured, well, they're listening to audio, and if they really want to, they can press buttons and get particle displays and stuff like that. And they can interact with it so they can create their own visual experience to go with the audio. But I simply called all these things under a bracket, I simply called them picture radio, because that's what it was. It was radio with pictures as opposed to television. And I was quite fond of that expression because it showed that kind of that area where you have a bridging, it's not like where you're broadcasting a concert where the visuals of the concert are as engaging as the sound. It's just something where the visuals are kind of incidental.
Yeah.
And if
I call that working in the gray zone, but yeah.
Now, I mean, the other interesting thing, broadcasting wise, is that since you were last with me, Elenor, we have iNews.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which, when I spoke to you the other week, you said, "Oh, I've heard of that," and I said, "Of course, I've heard of that. I keep an eye on these things. I'll have you know, especially broadcast." Now, this obviously is a show from Inworld, and its subject matter is really it's a broadcast show for Inworld users. But you're frequently on it. You have, I guess, fashion.
I'm the host.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So I sort of have to be there.
Yeah. Well, okay. You're a prime example of a grid host. A grid CEO who's also a host. There we go. Right. But obviously, you're endeavouring to cover a bit there, aren't you? You're looking at your users and maybe pulling a musician on to chat, and maybe pulling a jewelry designer on to chat, or a clothes designer. You're mixing it all together, aren't you? Like a sort of all-purpose chat show for the Inworld community.
It really is. One of the things that you and I have touched on this, that we really need to do a show about advertising for the metaverse, because I think it would be a huge thing, because metaverse is in a prime position right now to really sort of push itself forward and separate away from Second Life. But that's a whole different show. My goal has been to always say there is more to Inworlds or the metaverse than just coming in and going to a club and dancing.
Oh, God,
there is so much more to do. So when we look for guests, I had the Oyo people, I had Kel's Foxclaw on, because a lot of people aren't aware that you could do breedables, that there's actually people who program this stuff, and you can have all your cute little animals that you want and love. I mean, you gotta realize, so again, gamer chick, right? Ark Survival is one of my favorite games. Why is it one of my favorite games? Because I have dinosaurs that I can raise. All right? Seriously, think about that. All right? Just think about that mentality for a reason. But it's the same concept. You can come into Inworld and you can get your horsies and your lions and your wolves and all these other cute little animals that you absolutely adore. And you can raise them. And then you can sell them at auction, or you can do all these different little things that you want to do, right? Yeah. We have Trinity from Sea Creatures coming on. Now, I'm a month late, and let me just throw my apologies out to all of Inworlds right now, because due to the move, I didn't get a chance to do the show for August, but we're doing it on Wednesday, and then we're going to do the next show probably 2 Wednesdays after that, because my move's down here on September 4th, and that's a Monday. But anyways, we're going to have Trinity from Sea Creatures on, because that's some really cool stuff. We're trying to pull in people who do really unique things that really can show not just Inworlds, but the metaverse. Obviously, they're in Inworlds, but there's a whole world of different things that you can do that doesn't just revolve around doing the same things every single solitary day when you log in. And I thought that was important to distinguish because, again, as a gamer chick, even though Ark is my favorite game, I've played WoW, I've played ArcAge, I've played Black Desert Online, I've played so many games. They all have the same thing in common, which is what cuts down their lifetime, which is repetition.
Yeah.
And repetition is one of those things where it's really, really bad. People get the grindy, it's repetitive, it's this, it's that. And eventually they drift away or they do everything that they want to do and then they're done.
Mhm.
But
and if I can interject quickly.
Sure.
Games are quest driven as a rule.
Yes.
That's right.
Not only
Yeah.
they're
Once you
repetitive
master-
and you can only play it once, but you are living in somebody else's story.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas in virtual worlds, you are creating your own story.
That's right.
Right. And that's why I try to bring in guests who I'll get into the fashion people and the jewelry people. I'll get into all of those people. But I want to show that there's something different, that it's not just, because remember, you have to realize that when I went to SXSW, I came back with a very hard-learned lesson from SXSW. And this is going to sound terrible when I say it, but it is what it is. And I'm not going to try to, blunt it down for anybody or soften it. Every time somebody went past our booth, they said, "Oh, that's just like SL."
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
It was a brutal comment to hear repeatedly through the week, because it wasn't meant in a good manner. It was basically a slough off of, I don't need to go there because I already know what SL is about. Remember, this is, the most news people hear or the stuff that they retain is the worst stuff that can possibly be retained. So it doesn't matter how much good SL has done. It doesn't matter how much good it's done for disabled people or anything. That's not what sticks with the public. What sticks out there is the bad stuff. And so Inworlds and the Metaverse were slathered with that exact same reputation. And it doesn't matter how hard we work or how much it matters, obviously. But the point of it is that it's up to us, not just Inworlds, but the Metaverse as a whole, because there's more of us than there are of one company called SL.
Yeah.
Now you've
Together.
actually. Okay, carry on. I'm going to segue into something, but
Sure.
yeah.
Together, combined, the grids of the Metaverse can change that public opinion if they want to. And it's up to them, I think, who has to.
My thought there is it's still not good, but it might not be as bad as it seems, because on the bad side, you were getting people passing your booth and saying, "Yeah, that's just like SL." That indicated that the only people who were actually responding to you were people who knew SL and didn't think they thought of SL in unique terms, rather being a range of platforms. In other words, they probably psychologically thought SL had no competition, and they were just accusing you of being a mimic of SL. Yeah. But to take that attitude, remember, they must know SL.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So you're not going to have somebody passing your booth saying that's just like SL if they've never even heard of SL. And I know the media has had times when it's latched onto all sorts of salacious stuff about SL, which real life is just as salacious, but that's media for you. That if anything, put Second Life back a long way, because they were branded that kind of way.
Yes.
But the thing is, 99% of the people who pass the booth somewhere have never heard of SL either. So if you're promoting something as an experience, the fact it looks a bit like SL is meaningless to them because they don't know SL in the first place. So the real task, right, is to always project the usability of these platforms much more, forgive me, than SL or Inworld or anything, any branding, so much as the utility.
It's all. That's again. It's got to be a unified thing, and I say this because it's not just. You're right. It's not just Second Life, and it's not just Inworlds. But if you imagine, if you take Inworlds and you take GCG and you take DigiWorlds and you start taking all of the different metaverse grids that are out there. Yeah. Each one of us started for our own very reasons. Whatever it was, we decided that we wanted to do, what we wanted to create, we started this for a reason. But what we need to do is separate but unified. Think about this, separate but unified, okay, is start showing the world what we're all capable of.
Yeah.
because we're so much more than what was already out there in the media for SL that has warped these guys that says that this is just like SL. And there's a whole boatload of people. When I did the numbers, if you've ever read my blog, which I had up for a while, I did the market analysis, and it was literally 0.02% of the world marketplace that SL has.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was that much. I mean, it's a big world.
0.02%. That's a scary number, because you know what? When you're looking at business analytics and whatnot, you need to have an actual market share. There is no market share.
That's right.
So, but if you took all of these grids, all of us together, and unified, we say we're going to project a particular image, one of there's events that you could do, that you could have this creativity going on, that we're very disabled friendly, whatever it is your grid actually caters to, right?
Mhm.
And start putting that out there for yourself. You're not. Here's how I look at it. So Inworld has done advertising for a couple of years now, right? And one of the things that I've always looked at is I've said, even though we're pretty much the only ones who pay for advertising out there besides Second Life, right? I'm exposing people not just to Inworlds, but to the entire concept.
Yeah.
A virtual grid.
And that's what matters. But there also comes a time when it shouldn't just be one grid doing that. It should be all of us doing it.
Yeah.
There was a report, I forget whether it was Maria or David at Hypergrid Business who published it, the news. I think it's about 3 weeks ago, which I thought was a landmark if the figures all added up. But apparently, you know, when you talk about marketplace, of our ilk, Second Life is the biggest, but it's a closed garden and it's only a fraction of the real world. My minuscule fraction. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting is that apparently I don't know about the economy, obviously is a different thing, but in terms of land area, OpenSim is now bigger than Second Life.
Okay, but you know what? Don't get me started on the land, or Mel, because if I go to land values, I will sink that whole argument in a freaking heartbeat, because I know land area doesn't mean anything. I didn't calculate 0.02% based on land area.
That's actually what I'm getting at. I said,
right.
I was about to say these can't be compared because there is there's no economic, there's no real economic measurement in land area, because also it includes anything that's connected to the hypergrid plus known areas that could be, but that aren't. Right. But you know. For me, if I'm trying to get somebody into OpenSim, right, and they say, well, is that Second Life thing? I said, no, I haven't been involved with that for ages. I'm now in the open metaverse, you know. And they say, well, you know, what can you do there? And, you know, and I'll say, for example, right, and this is like a sales pitch. Right. I will say, well, OpenSim is, you know, a lot of internet grids that are far better than Second Life, and it's a much bigger area than Second Life. Now, to the person I'm saying that to, you know, you and I know that land area is a small bit of a big equation. But to the person I'm promoting it to, I'm telling them that the hypergrid-enabled universe is bigger than that old Second Life thing. And that's a good pitch.
It is. It
might be complete bullshit to us who, you know, look at all the.
But on the flip side, we don't really want to. We don't want to do BS either, because I think here's the thing. Look at Roddy here on GCG, right?
Yeah.
And Roddy's made some pretty tough decisions if you actually, you know, have followed him over the last year or so.
Oh, I've been
not to his customers' happy factor. Let's just put it that way. I've sort of have felt for him in some of those decisions, because I understand where they fall, and I get it. But here he is. He just wants a place where he can have his friends and have fun. It's not really a business to him, right? He's got his mindset here for what he wants to do for GCG. This is his thing, right? Yeah. You've got DigiWorlds. They have their own thing, and they just came out with that whole new concept that I'm really not sure yet what I think of that, but they've got their own thing that they like to do, and what they're focused on, how they want their grid to be represented. Everybody's got, even look, if you go back to Third Rock Grid, they had their own concept of how they wanted their grid to be represented. This is what we stand for. This is what we do, right? Yeah. And I think I think at this point, this is a really critical juncture for the metaverse. And I say that because I don't ever mean to poo-poo on the metaverse. This is my living. Hello, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also a realist when I look at numbers and whatnot. And to be really fair, I think we all have not just a responsibility, but we should have the expectation that we can work together while also competing against each other. Because here's something that Bain said this earlier in the conversation. He doesn't pull anybody from Second Life or anything like that. I absolutely hate when I hear that people are trying to pull other people from Second Life. Don't try to pull them. If you want them to come visit, that's great. Fine. It's like going to your grandma's house, right? Yeah. But understand that their heart and their home is there. Right. So I've always understood that concept. For years, I have watched as the grids have sat back and they've literally just chewed at each other's customers.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that.
It's horrible. It's horrible. There's a time right now is very, very important for the metaverse where we all stand up and say, we are better than this. We are better than Second Life. We know what's out there, but we represent something different. I represent this. They represent this. He represents that. Take your pick. Whether you're hypergrid or not, it doesn't even matter, really, does it? I mean, I could tell people to go to your little home computer, Mal, and they could do whatever they want over there. The fact of the matter is that we're at a point where we all need to unite and say, do we really want to grow? Do we really want to push this out into the public eye? Because SL having 0.02% of the market share means that we have like 0.00001 maybe.
Mm. Maybe. No, I totally agree. In fact, I was hoping to come back to this anyway. Guiding that.
Just trust me to just steer the conversation. There you go.
Yeah, you succumb there. I mean, it's I announced last week, I'll stick it in here again, that the Open Sim Community Convention has been set for this year on the 9th and 10th of December, and you'll be hearing more about that, call for proposals and stuff in about 2 weeks' time.
I think I have a proposal this year.
Yeah,
proposal? Ooh.
I think I have one finally.
I've almost certainly got a panel for you as well. In fact, I think it was... were you on one of my panels there last year? No, it was.
The panel that I was on last year was with Melanie and Krista. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was your panel.
It was, yeah. I wasn't sure it was all the year, but yeah, I think 2 years ago I did. I inaugurated the sort of viewer panel, and of course everybody was calling the viewer panel. And then last year I said, no, this is beyond the viewer panel.
Beyond the viewer.
I thought being limited to viewer people is, it's only one side of the equation. I wanted a sort of something that went a bit further, but obviously looked at it from the core of the viewer, if you see the possibilities of viewer, and of course, the web viewers and all that sort of stuff. Who knows what I would do this year? But going back to last year, I remember saying to other organisers things that, this time last year, I was beginning to think that this is like a last chance for the open metaverse or open simulator, the hypergrid and stuff, because I was saying, well, we've already discussed today that we don't think the consumer adoption of helmets is going to be a particularly rapid thing. Thank goodness. But, I thought, well, all the emphasis is shifting away to this VR tech. Most of it is barely virtual reality, in my opinion. It's photo panoramas that you can view in a headset. Or it's video with multiple angles. They call all this stuff VR now.
Oh, yeah, to take advantage of the hot buzz keyword that they want to use. Yeah.
But I was looking at all these up-and-coming things, and, there was high fidelity on the horizon, still on the horizon in some ways, same with Sciencebase. VR chat had come online, and, of course, there was Alt Space. these other things, right? And although unless they're social worlds, they're really beyond my remit. But you know, my self-imposed remit, I can't follow everything. But you know,
What?
I was
Why
saying,
not? Do you have to really sleep? Come on, Mal. Think about it. Do you really got to sleep?
Yep.
Okay, fine.
Sorry, all you
Fine.
multitasking women out there who can go on no sleep and be in 10 places at once. I love it, but I can't do it. I'm always saying this to Leah Lobo. She's like, you know, how one person can be in so many places at all 24 hours of the day.
It's a talent. Come on. You know, we're good at it.
It's an absolute
Wow, it's called dual login.
Oh, never mind. It's just beyond me. I'm growing old, you know. It's occupational therapy for me these days, I'm afraid to say, really. But coming back to the strand I was getting to there, I was sitting at OSCC or hanging around, you know, planning last year. And I was saying to people, you know, we've got to have panels, we've got to have a discussion now about the way forward, because we're hearing about all this VR tech, and we're seeing VR chat, Space VR, and all these sort of things coming online, which are sort of social worlds, but they all look amateurish. They look worse than, you know, was it VR chat? One of them looked worse than World, which predated Second Life. You know, it looked archaic. I said, you know, we may not have state-of-the-art graphics here. We may not be photorealistic like games, but we're not a game.
You're getting the foundation laid.
We have 10 years of the hypergrid. We have, 10 years of open sim, to be more precise. You know, we have a legacy of 10 years. We have the communities, we have the places, and all this, and none of these other whiz-bang things that are getting all the media attention have anything like it.
Nope.
Because it's the whole package, you know?
Right.
And we should be looking how the
integrate all those bits and pieces.
How the open metaverse can be promoted as a viable destination for people who want social worlds and want to be interconnected all over the world like the web.
See, I'm right there with you, Mal. I am so right there with you.
I think every resident on every grid is there with you on that one, my friend.
Yeah. But nobody expresses it. That, as you know, they will. It will be kind of, we've got to have a panel on this particular micro topic.
Yeah.
Or you know, well, I don't really know if, you know, if I come on this panel, you've got to allow me to promote my grid because I'm the best commercial grid around. Yeah. We suddenly start falling into, you know, I have to spend my time chasing what I call neutral people. I'm always happy to have you, Anna, because you talk in a general worldly overview sense, but, you know, and I will have grid owners here now and again to talk about their grids, hopefully where there's somebody else in the conversation to counterbalance them, you know, because I like to keep that worldview going.
Right, definitely.
You know,
definitely.
And, you know, so especially something like OSCC, you know, the last thing I want is to host a grid. I think somebody was suggesting that this year there should be a grid owners panel. And I thought, yeah, you and whose universe?
That'd be bad.
Yeah, no, firstly, you and whose universe, you know, which out of 200 grid owners do you choose for a panel for?
Right.
But more importantly, whoever the panelists are, it will be seen as, you know, a panel about commercial grids. And you can bet your life, being CEOs of commercial grids, they will be pitching their grid. Even last year, I had Adam Frisbee, who was one of the OpenSim founders, came on one of my panels, but because he's CEO of ScienceSpace, he was using, you know, not out of order, because, you know, he's passionate about OpenSim too, and he founded it, or one of the founders. But, you know, he couldn't help putting, you know, saying, you know, well, yeah, you know, I don't know, some hypothetical thing like, yeah, well, region crossings really are a bit of a problem. But of course, we killed that in ScienceSpace because we're no longer, you know, and, you know, you know. And I'm sure Philip Rosedale will do the same, except he charges to he charges to even come to sit down, you know, a loss a minute. But you know, yeah, you know, you have to. I just think one has to be a bit careful there, especially when you're running something like OCC, which is is an overview. It's like legacy that the first panel of the conference is the OpenSim core devs having a chat together. You know, that's, you know, and updating themselves, as it were. But, you know, I was trying to stress that, and I'm not knocking anybody at OCC here at all, but I was trying to say, you know, sort of, you know, if we're going to promote the platform and get on, you know, we can't just afford to focus on what the core development strand or something like that. We've got to think of the whole open metaverse.
It's a whole package. Yeah, it really is.
You know, it's called OpenSim Community Conference because it represents something from the days when OpenSim was just OpenSim, in a way. I mean, we now have Halcyon, we now have Ariba, we have Whitecore, we've got, you know, a whole load of, you know, forks and stuff like that. Yeah. And a much huger sort of network of worlds. And, you know,
what if you guys renamed it to the Metaverse Conference?
Well, no, OpenSim. Well, that's another argument. I would like open Metaverse.
Oh, it sounds like another fork in the
Open Metaverse Conference. That would be very good. That still keeps the OpenSim part of it, but it's the open. I think that would be a really. Only be.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the rather humble part of the organising team there, and of course I'm on the level underneath Avacon, who own the name, or, you know, used to be in the real world conventions and stuff. So but it's a thought, I might put it to them. But the thing was, OpenSim by name predates even the Hypergrid. You know, I tend to think of it as a Hypergrid community conference. But in fact, the fact that it's an OpenSim community conference puts it, you know, actually does put it in its place, because it's about more about these interconnected platforms than even the Hypergrid is. You know, I mean, yeah, you know, you're not on the Hypergrid, Elena. But,
no.
You know, so the Hypergrid itself is of less focus to you than, you know, the overview and indeed your own grid. Right?
But it was all about the open metaverse.
But it's still about the open metaverse, and however you look at it, I mean, Halcyon owes a legacy to the original. What version of OpenSim was it again? But OpenSim, you know. So there's a core there that goes back even further than the concept of the Hypergrid, and I think that, you know. You know, it's got to expand beyond that core, but also that core sort of anchors it. It's sort of nebulous, really. But you know, I did think, well, you know, we had Melanie on the show a few weeks ago, and I really just initially I thought we were going to just sort of catch up on the code merge for the core OpenSim and stuff, you know, precursor to the 09 series. But in fact, you know, one of the first things, you know, I mentioned was, how does it feel, you know, where OpenSim is 10 years old. And Melanie sort of changed track completely, unusually for her. I think we spent the first 2 hours of the whole show getting a history lesson from day one up to the present day. You know, she was remembering landmark points on the map of progress, you know, and it was a fascinating conversation. You know, she was name checking people from 10 years ago and then moving right up to date. And it was just such a great show, because it was like, hey, we've done a history edition. Yeah, you know. You know, so you know, you got this flavour of the progress over 10 years. But, you know, to be sitting here now saying we've been here 10 years, and for a lot of that time we've had the Hypergrid running, which is a plus point for connecting worlds. But there are worlds beyond the Hypergrid that still come from this same tradition. And, you know, we you know, OpenSim's been here 10 years. The tradition's even longer. And, you know, what's with these, you know, upstarts who are coming along with their headsets saying they've invented the world? You know, they've got nothing to compare with the 10 years of tradition we've got, or more. And, you know, I just, you know, I don't want to knock anybody who's doing something exciting and new, but I do just want to make the point, well, hang on, you know, we have been doing this for rather a long while. And I think we kind of know what we're doing, and we are all interconnected. And, you know,
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
got facilities here that are a bit more than having a VR chat, you know. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be a bit too easy for me to rant, and you're my guest. Yeah, Bane, you've been silent for a while.
Wait, do I get to rant? I want to rant. No, I don't want to rant. I'm actually pretty good at not ranting.
I'm the one who rants and then cues you if I remember to stop.
Oh, no, you're good. Bane, you can rant. Bane, you go ahead and rant. You rant for the both of us. How's that?
Oh, do you really want me to go down that road?
Bane, it's about time I got you to say a few things about, you know, your sense of that future. Maybe just your thoughts on what I was saying, this future direction and the world view as opposed to the grid view or the micro view of a particular project.
Well, like many people, you know, I've been following that whole open metaverse side of things for forever, ever since I got into SL, like, way back in, oh God, way back in the Wild Wild.
Don't age yourself. Don't age yourself. Just trust me there, Bane.
But, you know, it's and I'm seeing bits and pieces all starting to come, you know, just as you were talking about all these little new projects coming together are little components of a bigger piece of a pie, you know, and someday somebody's going to make that pie shell. And it's all going to come together. You know what I mean? And that's just an overview of what I'm seeing right now. And
I'm big on cherry pie.
Somebody's starting to think about that pie shell, and this conversation today was all about it, I think. Yeah. You know, and you know, and somebody will someday, you know, but you know, all these other components are all the foundation of something bigger, you know, and they're developing their code, and then someday somebody has to integrate all these different bits and pieces of code into a unified package, and suddenly you'll just be able to sit down on your desktop or your iPhone or iPad or whatever device you connect to the world, and you hit your home base, and then you go to wherever environment you wish to go. You know, like it's going to be how the internet's going to be. You know, if I want to go on Google, I start my home page. You know, and that home page sends me to Canadian Grid, SL, Inworld, OpenSim, Metaverse. You know,
your favorite grocery store.
Your house down the street, the coffee house, grocery store. You know, it's your connection to the world. And,
your computer will boot up, and you'll be in your sitting room. And if you want to walk to your study or your own cinema, it'll go out in the garden, you'll be able to. And if you want to go through a door to another destination somewhere in the world, you would be able to.
And all that's going to be all part of, you know, you know, a virtual room that you walk into. That, you know, there's your home portal. You open up the desk, and you off you go to this environment or that environment, or you know.
I have on one of my own computers a program called Rooms 3D. And it's probably dates to the end of the last century. That's how old it is, right? And I don't use it now because when I need to use OpenSim or you know, some kind of engine, the engine for Rooms 3D closes down. But for a long while, I loved it because I put it in my startup folder, so it booted with Windows. And it turns the Windows desktop into a room. Yeah. And all the icons on your desktop become objects. And you could go to the library and you could choose a 3D bookshelf, for example. Then you could go to its properties and you could link it to your folder of PDFs. Yeah. Or you could take an actual book and you could link it to the actual PDF. Or you could simply just, you know, go in, load a folder full of your films that you could then load into a player and things. And in fact, it was an OpenSim for my desktop, with local links and stuff to do. But of course, when something like Second Life and OpenSim came along, it gave me a polite notice saying it was going to have to shut down because I needed to run another engine, you know. It wasn't a standard OpenSim install, shall we put it that way? But it was because it became second nature for me to navigate, you know, to go from my sitting room where all my entertainment was to the next room, another part of my desktop, as it were, that was my work study.
That's right.
come library, and and then a nice pretty garden to hang out in, stuff like that. So it's all the pathway, and I think ultimately we will come there. I'm very fond of talking about we're busy changing the metaphor, the online metaphor, from pages to spaces.
That's right.
That's what I say, because I think ultimately we'll start considering electronic spaces, and when we think of pages, they'll just be things we have on the wall of spaces or something like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to web viewers, for example, which are the exact inversion of that. I think web viewers are a crucial step to being able to bring a greater public in via a web portal, but ultimately I think the web needs to be in the worlds.
Yeah.
And I'm off on it again, aren't I?
You went there again, Mal. Again.
I have a habit of doing that to people.
Can you? Okay, Mal's wish list. Web to be in worlds. Web to be in worlds. Web to be in worlds. I'm just, I'm going, based on the show. Just Mal wants the web in the worlds. That's it. Yes.
That's the paradigm, if that's the word that I operate by. I like to be in the environment and pull up what I want, even if it's an external browser triggered by a chat comment. I much prefer that to opening my web browser and having loads of tabs and going places. I like to pull them up, read them, put them away again, or bookmark them if I have to. It's it all happens in my space, not on the page. I think that's it's just my way of doing things. It suits me. I've always got another machine at the side of me that's got a web page open, or an email client if I need it, but normally I just trigger things from the world. And but that's also a personal way of working. And as Pathfinder rightly said to me, don't assume everybody's going to want a world server on their desktop. Most people don't think that way. They don't think about what the technology.
Maybe what you should be saying is they're not thinking that way now.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Well, also I think it's a fundamental thing of when we're actually going after the mainstream, right? Most people, quite frankly, don't think of anything to do with technology when they go online anymore. Some people, there's the famous instance of kids who use their mobile phones. That's all they use. They play some games on it and they get a Facebook.
Or BuzzFeed. My daughter's big on BuzzFeed.
Yeah, but no, the funny thing is when you tell, you talk to somebody's world is Facebook, that's their space almost, even though it's pages, and adverts more often than not. And, you say, haven't you checked that out on the internet? And they say, oh, I don't use the internet. And what the hell do they think Facebook is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They.
No, it's just an app on my phone.
Yeah.
It's like, have you seen the commercial with the little old ladies talking about trying to explain what Facebook is on the wall with Post-it notes?
I don't know. That sounds like something Zuckerberg might do.
I just thought I would throw that in there because I saw that commercial and I died laughing. It was so funny.
So cute.
I'm like,
I know.
But I think it's down to utility. Mobile. Again, my feeling is that mobile phones took off, right? Because we all knew what a phone was, and when it became portable and personal, it took off. And then when people were able to put a fully fledged computer in it, then that took off too. A 3D television had its heyday of about 3 weeks, because it was something that connected to television, which was so ubiquitous anyway. So these are kind of threads. You can't impose sudden change on people, but also when you do bring new things out, you have to really think of not what it can do for you, but what it can do for the people you're trying to promote it to. I could talk about what virtual worlds can do forever because I know, right?
Yeah.
right.
For somebody who doesn't know, just me saying so is not going to convince them. No. I need often to give them an example of something they didn't even dream possible, but is a real utility for them that they can get by just loading a virtual world viewer. And there are plenty of specific instances, like you can show an artist a 3D installation created in a virtual space. And
Yeah.
they'll think, oh, well, instead of doing my normal sculptures or watercolors, maybe I should try doing something there, because the artist in them sees the potential, right? But the
Yeah.
person who sits around all day watching television, they've really got to see the potential there. I mean, there are a lot of the TV stuff that comes through now. You've got smart TVs where you can squash the screen into 2/3 and you can have your Twitter feed at the side where they're talking about the show. So some people are slowly getting used to watching the conversation about the show while they're
Mhm.
watching it.
Yeah.
Just like our viewers today.
What we all call multitasking.
Yeah.
Yes.
But even though the smart TVs offer that,
Yeah.
probably less than 1% of people with the smart TV actually do that. Most people just switch on the TV full screen and watch what they're
Yep.
watching.
Yeah.
Yep. They might have a chat room to contribute.
A
they
funny
can't
thing.
be bothered.
Want to hear something funny? Ever since I got into virtual worlds, period, I can't sit and watch TV. The TV for me is a warm milk and tonic. It puts me to sleep.
Well,
Oh.
I'll let you into
It's It's not interactive. I can't
Yeah.
do things.
Until over in Britain, we have to pay the BBC for the right to own a television set, whether we watch BBC or anything else. I've never been a TV watcher, although since they started marketing DVDs and Blu-rays, I'm quite prone to those. I actually watched. Well, I don't watch TV. I think it's just mind control and stuff. But what happens is I do have a TV license now because I've got a big gigantic screen, But what I do is at about 1:00 in the morning, my time, I log out of, Skype's open, and I watch a movie or a box set or something with my partner Tara, and I actually find that is great for winding down, ready for sleep, because sometimes it does put me to sleep. But you're right. I mean, my idea of relaxing is not to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep's good. But
Sleep's cool. Yeah, I'm not going to knock sleep.
Well, you did admit that you need sleep, so we'll just go with that now.
I actually, believe it or not, I sleep about 9 or 10 hours every night now, even though I don't go to bed till 4 in the morning. My time, I get a lot of sleep. I need it these days. But the reason I don't like television, apart from the fact that subliminally it is propaganda most of the time, unless it is a film or a drama, and I prefer to choose to watch that in my own time rather than on live TV, so to speak.
That's why I have Netflix.
Yeah, as you say, the other thing is, it's not good to chill out to a movie or a concert. It's the fact that TV by its nature is not interactive. You're doing nothing. You're just absorbing whatever is being thrown at you. And I know so many people who have the TV on almost every waking hour of the day, like presumably of another era, they have radio on.
Yeah.
And they will listen and watch it, whether there's anything on they want to watch at all. Sometimes they will be gawking and they won't even change channels. They'll finish something they'll watch something mildly interesting, and then they'll just sit there watching for the next 5 hours whatever comes on that channel. People, it's like an ever-moving window. You go to visit somebody like that, and fat chance of having a conversation with anybody in that room, because even my own eyes will sometimes drift.
We'll burn the TV and get sucked into it.
Yeah. Well, it's not that I'm sucked into the TV. It's also a very insidious way of tuning out of a boring conversation.
Yes.
And that's such an insult to the people you're visiting.
Definitely.
So
when I did have a TV, somebody came over. It's off. The radio was on.
Yeah, definitely.
Apart from people watching the show who may or may not be commenting at YouTube in the channel there, the fact that many people watch it but don't say anything is symptomatic of, I think, people just like listening rather than being interactive a lot of the time, when they're chilling out or doing multitasking. But Inworld, for example, I don't go for this at all, but over in Second Life, somebody else who does, when it's in season, they do a weekly show there. And they never post it on Vimeo till the week after they have shown it Inworld to an Inworld audience. I don't know what kind of Inworld audience they get. They stream it from a secret URL, and they invite people Inworld to come and watch it. Now, the advantage to that is that the in crowd get to see it the week before it's on the web, or officially on the web. But also, people in the audience can chat about it as they watch it.
Yeah.
At their kind of special showing. I don't really go for that, but I can actually see the merits in that, because if you really want, if I did that with this, if we didn't broadcast it live on YouTube now, we could be doing it from a location on the hypergrid somewhere like this, and we could have an audience here, and we could interact with the audience while we're recording it, and the public version goes up a week later. But logistics wise, I don't like that, but it swings and roundabouts, as to the way the way you interact with an audience, I think.
Yeah. Well, it always comes down to which audience are you targeting. It's just, whether it's a show or relay or the grid itself or hypergrid, it all depends to which audience. What's your market?
Yeah.
Who are you targeting?
Yeah, I sometimes wonder who my demographic is. Is it people, ideally there'll be a whole portion of the demographic I could identify that aren't in virtual worlds and might be tempted in. But of course, even if they're out there, if I tempt them in, then they're our own world, if you see what I mean. Clearly it is people who want to keep up to date with the news and the discussion, as like we're having on this show, that tune in every week, whether it's live or whether they replay sometime in the week and, comment. Some shows get lots of comments, others...
Yep.
People don't say much at all. They just hit the like button or something. So, and I'm like that too. I create a whole playlist by pressing the like button. I don't say anything about it. I just like it so that it would go on the playlist.
Yeah. I had the other half ask me the other day. He's like, "So you like this ad?" I said, "I never hit like to ads. I never hit like on ads." But there it was on his Facebook. I said, "So-and-so likes this." So I'm like, no, I never did that. Yeah.
Well, what you probably do is you probably like that somebody liked of another like.
Wow, that's convoluted.
Facebook is getting that convoluted, so yeah.
That's what Facebook is,
Convoluted, yes, very, very true. But it's an excellent advertising platform.
Yes. I guess so. And
it is. Trust me. This is one of those talks we need to have now, because it's an excellent platform. It's
a great place to reach people.
It's my preferred venue of when I do my videos, my pictures, anything in Worlds. That's where it goes.
Yep. I guess I'm funny. I have a Facebook account and I have Facebook Messenger open, but not Facebook itself.
I have a Facebook page for Inworld.
Yeah.
So and that's why we need to have that talk, because most people think that it's really difficult and whatnot, but honestly, it's like some of the simple. I spend like when
my drawback on this, I know where you're going, is that when I first used Facebook, I was getting in touch with old friends and things like that, that I've lost touch with over, maybe I haven't seen for 50 years or something. Yeah. And I was kind of pretty evangelistic about virtual worlds, but the people I was in touch with on Facebook, some people would say, "You still playing that game?" and all that sort of stuff. I post links about politics, social affairs, music and art on Facebook when I get round to doing it, and I don't do it enough really. But I keep what I erroneously call the professional side of the metaverse out of it, because I'm on so many other places that people can follow my metaverse streams everywhere. And Facebook to me is something different. And even though I have joined Canadian Grid's Facebook group, for example, I rely on Google Plus and my Inworld messages to know what's going on. I don't rely on the Facebook feed. And also, it's too much. If I do open Facebook, there'll be a button there saying I've got 20 messages,
right?
There are 54 more posts, and then I have to scroll down the timeline all clunkily. It is it's a black hole for time, and I haven't got that time. You know, as I said, I like to sleep a lot, so I want to make the best of the time when I'm not sleeping. And it's not scrolling endless posts on Facebook.
Yeah.
I have much faster, more efficient ways of communicating.
Yeah.
And
one of the things you can do with Facebook though is you can create groups and you can create pages.
Yeah.
So you can use that page to promote strictly what you're doing here on this show, and you're reaching that audience who follow this show off that page, and your personal account stays personal.
I actually do have a page, and I don't think I've ever done anything with it. So one of these days when I wake up to it, I might actually configure something.
Yeah, well, that is the easiest way to separate your reach on Facebook is, your personal space is your personal space. That's where your family and friends and all your association, blah, 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 connect to you. Yeah. And then you create these other pages, spaces, whatever you want to call them. And that's where you're targeting specific audiences.
So I could change the name of the Malburn's page to Metaworld or something and brand
No, you create a page for it.
You create a page for it.
You create a page for it.
And you manage that page for Mal Burns.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, like I have my Beth Reichel account, which is on Facebook, but then I have a page that's called Inworlds. I also have an Inworlds group, and those two are separate from my personal account. Yeah. So when I post something into my Inworlds on the Inworlds business page, like a video or whatnot, I can choose on my personal side whether or not to share that video or not. So I keep all of that as separate as I want. It's just like when I was talking to the group here in Panama, the expats in Panama, you didn't see any of my questions on my personal wall because it was all part of the group expats in Panama. So it's really neat. So you can have different spaces in Facebook where you can do, the reason why you do it is honestly because once you start posting and you link it in with all your other media that you have, right? You build up that viewership more. You build up more people watching you and getting you. That's what I've done with Inworld. So it's a prime place for doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
we just sold him.
I think we just overloaded him, Bane.
Another little category to go in that ever bubbling ideas pot. Right? Wait a second. I'm going to absorb all that. First of all, I'm going to say, James.
Well, hopefully you just play back the show. You'll get it. Don't worry.
Right. If you have any questions, ask us. We can walk you right through it.
Yeah. I got you. I got you. I just suddenly thought the thought of going into Facebook now and setting it up is draining me. So it will be another day, but I will endeavour to do it. I was just going to ask James if there's anything else coming in from the non-chat in the channel, but also James's own thoughts on this.
I've been keeping an eye on it. They're pretty chatty over there.
Yeah, that's good, Bane. There's some good comments coming in, and it's obviously a group that's familiar with each other, and
yes.
But I love the commentary going on.
Oh, they are an amazing bunch.
Yeah.
They are.
I can't see this commentary. So who's in it? What they're saying? They're all Inworlds residents, I'm sure.
Oh.
Mel, what happens when I show up on your show? Hello.
Well, you did send your independent link out beforehand. So.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. That's what I do. And so did Bane. and then they proliferated it out throughout the grid and also into different welcome groups. So yeah, it got sent out.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, as well as welcoming my guests from Inworlds today, I think I better welcome the old residents of Inworlds who are tuning in to see what your CEO is up to. So, any interesting comments, James? I mean, it's particular. Is
well,
it just
keeping it PG,
yeah. Bane would be probably better to pass them along, but. Great comments about, for example, we're talking about YouTube and, the commentary about, linking like you do with if this then that. IFTT, right. When you post on YouTube, it goes on your Facebook. So there's a lot of automation of promoting activities for your pages and for your groups.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. For 3 days I've been getting messages from WordPress. Apparently, somebody tried to get into my site, so they withheld my name and password.
Yep.
And of course, as a result of that, I'm getting both Sapia, which is similar to IFTT, and IFTT posting to me saying your pipe is broken.
Right.
You can fix it, but you'll have to do this. So I think apparently I've got to make a new password at WordPress. Then I'm going to have to go to IFTT and Zapier and retweak every widget so they post to the new with the new password. Oh dear,
it's a nightmare. I know.
I love IFTT because it's one button and it's an automated robot. So it does a lot of work for me.
Right.
And now something like this goes wrong, I've got to go and press 100 buttons just to fix it.
It's interesting. I was reflecting on the discussion about television and people who leave their television on, a lot. It's kind of background noise, and I've also noticed a lot of times that that can be lonely people, who are seeking some companionship by having the sound on in the background. And it's so ironic because we're here talking about social worlds, and there's plenty of friendships to have out here in virtual worlds. Yeah. You don't need that television friend. Yeah.
That is a wonderful point, because one of the things that I've noticed, I've noticed many things about virtual worlds. One, that it heals. I've seen miracles, but the other thing that I really noticed a lot is that most of the people in Inworld or on the grids are people who have some kind of this isolation issue. They live away out in the country. They don't live near anybody they know, or something like that. Or they have mobility issues or other, life struggles and stuff like that. And these environments give them a society. They give them a world, of friendships and a connection and stuff like that. And and those are the people who are most likely to come and check this out.
I have to say, I'm I've made no bones about it. I'm long retired from what you might call the RL work obligations, and I would hate to think that I lived a life where I just sat around watching television all day, or even just reading a book all day, which is equally rewarding. It's not just virtual worlds. I am so used to, for a long while, being online all the while. So the fact that I can always still be online, despite the fact that I don't go for as long a walks anymore, and I don't, I'm not invalided, but we're getting old.
Right.
So there is, there is, certainly something there. To what you say, and I do, Anna made a remark earlier about, I was going on about spring chickens or something. You said, well, actually, they're all quite old. I was, and I can see that because, I can hear from people's voices in World, that, you can tell the difference between not all the while, but you can often tell the difference between a world-weary voice and not so world experienced voice.
That's right. Yeah.
It's in the voice. So I think there is a great point there. I mean, if I was kind of working 9 to 5 in the workplace or whatever else really, or something, I was certainly, I think I will be using virtual worlds, but I would certainly be approaching them in a different way. I will be task driven rather than being now what I am, which is like a commentator overview sort of person.
Yeah, and I'm a very typical person there. I'm 55. I work during the work week. I get home at night. I got literally an hour or two to relax. So for me to drive across town to go visit a friend for 20 minutes and then drive back across town, not happening. But I can log in and interact with people that I know really well, and blah, 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 have some fun, do a little good, blah, 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 and go to bed, with my social life fulfilled, weekends, that's a different story,
Do you feel like a Sim sometimes, because they have the whole social need, so, just I have to ask the question because anybody who's ever played The Sims would know what I'm asking here, because it's like I need my social life filled here, So and it does fill that, and that's one of the things that virtual worlds is
And for
Absolutely
somebody
phenomenal
who
about.
has issues with getting around town, that is a big bonus for them.
Yeah, it is.
sure. I mean, back in the days of, I will have to confess to this, and I'm not the only person because of, back in the days in Second Life, you were meeting corporate CEOs and everybody, people from Intel, IBM. Do you remember a show called Metanomics, which I was tangentially involved with? At that time, we sort of always thought Second Life was the future of this new thing that was going to happen called the metaverse. Well, of course, I think we were just blind to the fact we were doing it all in a walled garden. It wasn't until Linden Labs tried to sell corporation servers with Second Life pre-installed behind a firewall that you realized the fallacy of it wasn't open at all. It was Linden Lab product.
Yeah.
But there were so many conversations at that time, very serious conversations, a bit like there were more interviews, Bears Sellers interviews rather than the open-ended talk of this, but similar sort of issues. The guests would be looking at the future of these things and what they're going to do with it, or what this company or that company saw as the future of things. And I'm also a lot, that was really my core interest at first. The first thing I did in Second Life was come in to meet a Twitter group we had. We had a little private Twitter group when we were beta testing Twitter, and we thought, oh, well, we'll have a little private meetup, but we'll go into this Second Life place and do it, and the rest is history. But, so I've always had that core there. It was a social thing as well as, just the Twitter group of us, which commonality was we were sharing links and we were, virtual worlds were coming on the radar. But then, you found the musicians and all the sort of social thing picks up. But I actually, especially now I'm running a grid on my own machine. But even for the last year or two, I've been doing it here in Canada. I actually spend a lot of time, not many people pass through, and I'm normally somewhere in one of the side regions, buried, fiddling or something. Or I simply park myself by a waterfall on a rock and sit, and then, blow up the screen and go to the end of the other end of the room and do something else, And I look up and it's like looking out the window. Oh, I'm sitting by a waterfall. Cool. Mm-hmm. So I actually do quite some solitary. I actually use Virtuos for some quite solitary stuff too.
Oh, I do too.
Building, so it's not just, although the social part of it is an integral part of it, it's a communications platform. There is so much beyond that. I mean, I almost think that's what people like Sansa are after: spectacular builds for people to walk around and do nothing in.
That's not something I'm up for, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I'll quite often go sit somewhere, on one of the grids just to, because I have to write a speech or something like that. I just need a nice space to zen out. And get that center happening, get the juices flowing, and then you start writing or doing whatever you're needing to create. And I love doing that all the time.
I think a lot of people do. Krista Lopez, who invented the hypergrid, basically, she hosts all that stuff at the university, but her private grid, is like online all the while. And for about 16 hours a day, she's online. I'll pop over there and she's just sitting by her ocean in a meditative pose. She's clearly not there. Or she's busy working, and I'll say hello, no reply, and I'll leave a message, or if it's just passing through, I'll just disappear. But I can see that something like you just have the space open and you're there, and I suppose people can leave messages or contact you in an emergency. It's not, it's just like the real world, really. You one day you go out shopping in the high street, the next day you take a train out to the country and go wander around.
Or you're driving through a neighborhood and driving past a friend's place, and you just drop a note in their mailbox while they're working in the garage or in the garden, and you just keep on going. Yeah,
exactly. I think we are talking about I was saying, moving from pages to spaces. We were talking about the out of space thing, and now, eventually this will be one, extension of real life. I think
Yeah.
is what they say. I mean,
Oh, it's the way it's going to go. I have no doubt about that.
the thing that made me think of the metanomics days is one of the recurring subjects at metanomics was the fact that how the metaverse is going to be, the future. We won't need air travel anymore. We won't need to burn fossil fuels and stuff
Yes.
to run
Yeah.
servers. It didn't happen. Everybody just got a bigger, better mobile phone.
Yeah.
And carried on moving around as normal. Well, we all need
Yeah.
exercise and stuff like that, but people still spend 3 hours on top of the working day commuting, or 4 hours sometimes.
Or more.
Time is wasted, and they're burning fuel that doesn't need to be burned. They could go into a workplace once a week to have a water cooler session, but do most of their work faster and better online. But it's still not seen that way, which to me, I don't know, 20 years ago, I thought, right, well, I still buy the old comic book and my art books and things because I like the books. But, I'm not going to buy a printer. I'll just print a PDF and I'll email the PDF. I
do the same.
I don't understand why people buy their first desktop computer and the first thing that they want, in fact, the only thing they want is a printer.
Yeah.
Because the printer is almost obsolete. Yes, but yet it's far from obsolete. All those inks and the paper and stuff is, just being consumed more and more than ever.
Yeah.
So there is this.
Or they're just printing stuff just because they got a printer. If they didn't have the printer, they wouldn't be printing that stuff anyways.
Yeah. I don't know. An artist friend of mine made a real goof. I think I helped get her, reasonably low resolution, but good enough for screen, of artworks on screen on a web page, the web gallery basically, so people can look at them. They can see where the painting, who owns the painting, and they can see other paintings that are still for sale and make offers as far on other sites and everything. And she thought it would be a good idea to print off, I think it was a Christmas card or a New Year card or something of one of her paintings. But clearly didn't know enough about the printing technology or the lack of printing technology that her printer exhibited, And, you got this sort of looked like a dot matrix, or those color rendition of a wonderful painting that just looks like awful by the time it had been printed out. Because, why use the printer? Why not just send a watermark PDF or something to people to use as a, full screen desktop or something. Go figure. But funny old world. Right. Well, we're past our. We're well past.
We're past it as usual.
We're past the 2-hour mark, so anything from now on is ad lib or by necessity. We normally ask for. We normally go for 3 hours.
Went into OT as well, so why not this one?
Oh no, we go OT every week. Most weeks, James will attest to this. I normally wake up to the fact I ought to close the show after about 3 hours. But it's quite a long haul for listeners. So I think that's why a lot of people do their housework while they're listening rather than watching.
Well, we used to be limited.
You missed a spot.
Yeah. We used to be limited by file space on hard drives for recording as well.
Yeah, and in the days, and before the show was on YouTube, we relied on live stream, and there's actually a timeout limit. Although I think it actually was generous. It was 5-hour timeout on live stream, but eventually, we move with the times. So let's when I wrap, I like to go around everybody saying, what we haven't discussed yet, and anything else I've missed. Although particularly, we've talked state of the art and a whole load of things, which is great because that's what this show's about, open-ended talk. But before I ask you if there's anything else, maybe what's coming up for both of you? Let's start with Elenor. There must obviously you mentioned the not expos, the fests you're having. There are a lot of them. Toys for Tots, Halloween Fest, August Fest. Just give us a brief rundown and feel free to speak out speak out any links that you might want people to follow?
Well, we've got the Fall Fest as first, which is immediately, which it also encompasses the Fright Fest, if you will, which runs through the end of October. But we keep the displays
Halloween.
running through, and then we do a change.
Fright Fest is Halloween, I take it.
Yes, Halloween. And then that ties right, and we have a very, very short window of time in which then the Christmas Sims are built. And then that leads right into our auctions, along with our Toys for Tots Fest. Then we have our fireworks display, which, hey, Neytiri, if you're listening, I need fireworks. Yeah. That's for New Year's Eve. Yeah, if you've never seen Neytiri's fireworks, they are absolutely the bomb.
I've never seen better fireworks than these anywhere.
They're awesome. I mean,
Cool.
She does beautiful work. And then that we have a couple weeks off, and then we go right into our birthday bash, but that's 2018, so we won't talk about that. So yeah, for right now, from now until April, we are going to be pretty much like just jam packing on the social events. That's really going to be our big focus. And I'm hoping that this year I'm going to try to run a little bit of a preview on the auction stuff. For the Toys for Tots Gala, because that's really big. And also we also auction me off for Toys for Tots. That happens.
Oh, wonderful!
Oh yeah.
Either I get locked in jail, or you have to free me, or I never
do
sure
something.
what.
Yeah,
they
always
do
do
something horrible to me. You know, it's a whole thing.
You love it, my dear.
I do. I love it.
My partner auctioned me off for a virtual date. That was to raise money for something. It might have been real life, for all I remember. That was interesting. I actually loved the thing you said earlier, Bane, about, or was it, I forget which of you said it, about the auction you had, where the fact that it really is an auction for original one-offs. In other words, people aren't just bidding, or bidding on something that's worth 1,000. What's it called? Izzy's.
Yes.
That they can buy, but they're going in the auction to try and get it cheap, whereas you're actually selling something that is a unique one.
No, these guys got a huge heart. They are just pouring it out, because what they're getting is not what's important. What's important to these people is what they're giving it to.
Yes, that's what matters to them.
That is their DNA of these people in that grid. I tell you, their heart is huge.
I'm sure. I just still think it is nice that the auction is, offering that value too, something unique. It may not be the value of what it is. They, it may be worth 100 Izzy's and they bid 250,000 Izzy's or whatever.
That's exactly what they're doing.
That's where the heart is. That's where the heart is. But it is also it is also nice that it's they're getting a one-off original. It's either houses or we have our collection of Christmas trees. Oh my gosh. We always have a collection of Christmas trees. Beautiful Christmas trees. Yes. The Oyo horses, then they do their other breedables as well. Last year I think EC set the standard for different ornaments.
Yes.
For hanging in your house. The houses are also big. And they get custom work done to them as well. So the creator will come out and put it down for you and fix anything that needs to be fixed, or paint any color that you want. They do all that, and it's really it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of DJing, dancing, partying. There's no drinking. Well, I guess there's virtual drinking when you think about it.
Well, I think they are drinking on the other side of the monitor.
I wasn't gonna say that, Bean, because Calliope does.
I see crazy things.
What was it again? Club. Yeah, you can tell. But I've got a virtual vodka bottle that animates, and after about 10 minutes, my avatar starts staggering. It's actually quite amusing. After 30 minutes, he ends up on the floor, and you have to detach the bottle to get any life out of it. It's great fun.
So yeah, that's our big lineup for now until the end of the year. And
Sure.
so obviously there'll be a lot of postings from me on the Facebook group and et cetera, because these are our big events. This is pretty much what the whole summer break is all about, is just winding down so that we can just hit these with everything that we got, and because they're important, especially the Toys for Tots, because we always do at least $3,000 in donations to Toys for Tots every year. So it's a really it's a big thing for our users and for us, and it makes us feel good. It makes them feel good. It's just because we aren't out and about with our family for whatever reason, or our friends, or maybe we have, the fact that we can give money to help kids who need help, that's where everything really matters.
Okay, a little earlier on, I thought I saw an IM from Remember and Inworld here, and I was looking all over the place trying to find it. And there was no button up, and I thought, oh, I must have been imagining things. But now I've suddenly seen where it is. So I'm in Alchemy, and I'm not quite used to where it hides things. I've actually got a little message for our viewers here, I guess. She says she don't know if I can read this, but wanted to let you know she's holding a small meetings for some of the Safari regulars. This is Hypergrid Safari, of course, this coming Wednesday, August the 30th, at the usual Safari time, which is noon Pacific, at the Safari Clubhouse on Franco Grid. There were several, but at the Franco region. The idea is to talk about sharing the load of letting people know about upcoming trips, sending notice on various glitches. There is no pressure to take on any work, just a chance for a few of us to talk strategy. So there you go, Hypergrid Safari regulars. There will be a not Safari at the same time, so normal place on Wednesday to talk strategy. So yeah, it'd be good to get together mid off season, so to speak. So that's a message from Cesar in the background there. Right. What was it? Oh yeah, Matt Turner. Now, as I made clear a couple of times earlier, Inworld is one of the grids that isn't actually on the hypergrid. Mostly because it runs a complete Halcyon, which is a non-hypergrid enabled platform. So obviously, presumably people can use more or less any virtual world viewer to log in. If they look at their grid list, they'll see Inworlds. Is there a particular viewer you would recommend for people going on the Halcyon backbone, or?
Well, we're about to get our new Inworlds viewer coming in, which is, I want to say, backboned off of Alchemy. But also Firestorm works as well, and we're good with Firestorm because Firestorm, their open sim version, they're really good about supporting it, especially any issues that we find with Inworlds. The team is absolutely fantastic at making sure those issues get fixed. So either of those two viewers, we strongly recommend, because it's easier for us if you're working with one of those two viewers. If you have issues, we know that you're using something that we can eliminate the viewer as being an issue. Let's put it that way.
And your own viewer is.
Oh, and Alchemy can be used too.
Yeah, your own viewer is Alchemy, but just branding.
Yes.
Thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a branding thing, and so you can use Alchemy, Firestorm, or Inworlds. Those are the three that we strongly recommend, and anything else beyond that, if you're having issues, it's going to be the first question we ask. What viewer are you using?
Yeah. So it's a bit like in a Second Life or Hyperfidelity or something.
Yeah, I can definitely.
You just take time off and load a different viewer and head on over to check out what's happening in Worlds.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to the Firestorm viewer. It's seamless. Moving from Second Life to over to Inworlds and over here to the Canadian grid, it's seamless with Firestorm.
Yeah, I use Firestorm all the while. I'm only in Alchemy today because I've made that my new viewer for Great Canadian Grid, but most of the time I like Firestorm. We all like Firestorm.
Yeah, they're a great bunch of people.
Yeah,
great bunch of people.
Okay, so that was what's coming up on Inworlds. What's coming up, or anything interesting coming up with you, Bane? Obviously, there's a couple of weeks to go before the final weekend for RFL.
Yes.
If you'd like to.
Well, we got 4 weeks, 8 weeks of season coming up, and the best way to follow us is just to get into a grid and join the relay volunteer group and chime in and say hello and say you want to come and relay.
And do you perchance have a Facebook page too?
And we're all over social media. We have Google calendars going for all our events. It's up on Facebook, Twitter, Plurk, and a few others. We have a blog, and we have our webpage for all the information about relay and what we're doing.
I just had to check you had a Facebook.
All you have to do is just Google RFL of IW on any browser, and you will connect to all our sites. That's it.
After that conversation earlier,
It's a constant name across our social media. It's RFL of IW, and you'll find us.
Right. After that conversation earlier, I just had to check you had a Facebook page.
Of course he does, just like I do. Come on.
No, it would have just been so funny if you said, Anyway, I'm flippant, aren't I? Okay,
it's okay.
So, what are the dates for the relay weekend? The final.
Okay, our relay weekend is on the 14th of October, and the following weekend, I'm going to get the exact date. I'm pretty sure it's the 21st. Yes, October 21st is a very special event going on. It's a Golden Touch is a group of individuals on our grid who put on these theatrical performances that are just jaw-dropping amazing. And the team that get together to put the show on, they are bringing the very best talent with everything from cinematography, motion, dance motion. They perform the first two people dancing individually, joined together as a couple, dance as a couple, and then separate to dance individually again. First time that ever happened on any grid.
If you've never seen their videos,
their shows are way over the top.
Their videos are beyond belief.
Is it some kind of motion capture thing or just highly advanced scripting?
Highly advanced scripting.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, always good to see.
Just phenomenal work.
You find them on YouTube. Just type in Golden Touch Theater.
Yes.
And watch some of their videos. They are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I know I've got iNews, but I'm not sure I've got Golden Touch. So
I post a lot of their videos because once they do a show, they slow release their videos afterwards. They do like this one that really just like floored me. It was just so amazing. They made the whole stage black, and the outfits were stick figures, illuminated stick figures.
Oh my god!
And they danced. It was just the coolest thing. I was like, oh my god, that is so cool. And everything is synced, and everything is set, and it's amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's so popular that everybody wants to see the show. It's at the point now they're having to put on multiple shows. On a weekend, so everybody could see it.
Exactly. They have to take up a residency somewhere to accommodate everybody. Yeah, that is one of the drawbacks of simulators, isn't it? What are your load sort of things on Halcyon, by the way? What's the sort of maximum? Say you've just got one simulator, one region.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What kind of is the max attendance for avatars?
We actually did a load test. The last load test we did, which was a while ago, and I'm sure we need to do another one again. Yeah. But we did it on IDI, actual Inworld's Desert Island. We had a DJ, we had dancing going on, and we had 125 people on the region.
Oh, very good. So that's a significant improvement on a lot. I know there are regions on the hypergrid that have managed 100 with there's down to the server they're on, I think. But I always think in terms of capping out at 50 if I'm advising anyone.
Well, we have the region set as 75 as the max. only because we knew what was on IDI. So we had actual access to the memory and all that. So we put the cap at 75 for people. So that way if they're running scripts and everything else that's going on the region, they've got that cushion before it would actually crash. So their hard cap is 75, but our unit tests show 125. And IDI is not a light region in the least.
No, it's not.
Never has been. And like I say, people dancing, but we didn't put any restrictions. We just said, come. And they did. And I think we hit actually 127 before the region finally said, okay, I've had enough. Good night.
Your bacon and eggs are done. I'm down.
that was pretty much it. We probably need to do another one because it's probably up to about 135 or so now. But we haven't actually really tested it. So maybe I'll whisper over in their ear and say, hey, let's do a unit test and then see what happens. So
I
have to say the sim crossings are beautiful on Inworld servers too, because I have a boat I won at an auction a couple of relay seasons ago, and this boat can really move on high gear, and literally cross a sim in 3 seconds.
Oh, I've got one downstairs. I've got one downstairs.
To the next end, 3 seconds, bounce through the next end, boom. I can fly from my house, which is on the western side of the Inworld seas, fly all the way down to IDI Island, which is on the eastern side of the IDI seas, in 5 minutes. Cross
I have a boat downstairs which I can never get over. Oh, I never got on it. I actually got it in the offline sim too, but it can cross the whole water region before I've actually toggled the high speed. It's like, I think, hang on, my avatar would walk across that, quite a while, and this boat just flies there. But of course, the moment it comes to a region crossing, it does all sorts of acrobatics. There's certainly nothing to do with boats.
It happens in Inworld. Most of the time, it's pretty smooth. I have to really say that because, it's just amazing. Just boom, you get a bit of a jolt, but you just keep on flying through the next thing, and then a little boom, and then you're into the next sim, boom, into the next one. It just goes.
I believe the new release of OpenSim has made region crossings pretty seamless, but you not only need the new release, but you actually have to switch from the bullet physics engine to the UBOD or something. UBIT, yeah. So things are improving all over the place, but yes, I must admit, the reason my offline grid is it's just one big 16 region var file, so I don't worry about crossings. But and of course, my dread is that anybody who's a friend of mine is gradually getting to know my avatar over there. Yeah. And of course, from that they can extrapolate the login on the hypergrid. You were talking about scaling for avatars. I dread that I'll get 6 visitors at once. What is using nothing in the background while I'm doing other work? The moment somebody else comes in, that doubles, and somebody else it triples, and before you know it. It only takes a couple of people visiting your computer to bring everything to a standstill.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's not the solution for commercial outfits, that's for sure. Okay, well, that's wonderful. So anything else? Any other closing thoughts while we've got you? Before I do the formal?
I think we seriously need to do a show about the whole metaverse unification and getting some marketing and some easy tips and tricks for what they can do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that whole thought there, Al. That is, definitely something that needs to be considered, is that overall umbrella of what we are, and people then take that to express what they are.
They are, right.
And I totally agree on that whole philosophy, because that's exactly what we need to do, because there's so many people out there who can certainly take advantage of all of this.
Well, maybe we get together on that, and it might be something I could do because I'm pretty much independent of grids and platforms. Even though we're in Canada at the moment, there is no, we've got a courtesy notice at the back, but we're hypergrid orientated and open metaverse orientated. Yeah.
So, hey, we're all in this together, whether we're hypergridded or not. We're all in this together.
it sounds like a goodie. And talking of TV shows, I didn't ask you when you do iNews.
Yes.
All the ones I've watched have been recordings posted at YouTube. But do you actually stream it live on YouTube, or do you post it after?
We post it after because we're really keen on getting that closed captioning service done on it.
Yeah.
And it takes them less than 24 hours. Once Bensky sends me the raw footage, I send it in, and then while that's getting done, he adds the additional footage to it. So it works out really, really well. But we want people, because of course, one of the things that you have to, we have virtual ability, right? Virtual ability is all about disability and people who have disabilities. So they're like a big stop for disabled people when they get to our grid. So it's, when I started iNews, one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that if I'm promoting the people in our grid and the beautiful things that you can do in our grid, I wanted to make sure that whether you could hear or not, you could at least get the context of what we are trying to put out there. And so it seemed closed captioning it just seemed to be the right way to go. Yeah, I know it takes 4 days to get it out there after we do the recording, but it just seems so worth it. And I do interact with the audience when I'm doing the recording. So if you're there and you got questions, I'll answer it while I'm there, because that's just what I do, because I want it to be interactive that way.
And we're the same way with relays. We have many relayers that are have hearing issues and cannot hear, so they can't hear the spoken word. And plus, you throw in the international community that English is not their first language. The closed captioning is so very important. And all our ceremonies now are done in voice, and that speech is also dumped on local chat so they could read it.
It's a shame it's so convoluted at the moment, because Lisa at IMA now, but it was earlier than that, was Steve Levine, in fact, I think it was sort of trying to work out with me how we could have voice captioning on this show. And in fact, it's nothing to do with the fact we're live, because once it's recorded and processed, it's set to have voice captioning. But apparently, we're just too long a show for the voice captioning to calculate. So if people watch our news before this, which is like 25 minutes, that in a few days that will actually have captions on it. But this show never makes it to the captioning. The Google captioning engine just gives up. It's set to be on, but maybe after a year one day we'll find some captions.
It's all, like I said, it's all technology that's slowly growing, and it starts off fairly simple. Like James said earlier, with the dry space online. We had to limit our show to half an hour because we couldn't post the whole thing up. Now it's dry space is unlimited. We can do a show for 24 hours and post it. So closed captioning, I'm sure we'll get there too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you'll be able to tie into the viewer, so that while I'm talking, it's automatically getting put out on local chat. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's going to be the voice recognition, because like my Siri, dude, I want to just hit her sometimes. Say, where did you come up with that from? Really?
That's something high on the IMA's agenda, but I guess it's because they're disability lead. Voice to text and text to voice, in fact, both of them for different purposes. So
it's still in its infancy.
It is. It'll get better. It will. It always does.
Well, they're hoping it can be something that could be built in viewer side, so that it's part of the viewer.
I'm sure it will be someday.
Therefore, could be automatic for anybody recording at the same time. So all down to the future. It changes every year. You look back and there's been phenomenal change. You just don't notice it while it's slipping by usually. Okay, well, I think we've pretty much exhausted everything. James, any final thoughts from you, or any last minute comments from the audience?
No, nothing last minute from the audience. I don't ever ask Siri to search for USB-C, the cable connection. It doesn't know.
Wait, now I gotta try this as soon as I get out of here.
That's right. And then the other thing, I guess I missed the notice about dress code tonight. So
Dress code?
Yeah.
There's a dress.
There
Oh,
was
you're
a
not in
dress
black.
code?
Yeah,
I think we all
I'm
dressed
brown.
Black, yeah, yeah, he's not in all black.
I'm not in black.
We're all in black. We're like the Three Stooges over here in all black. We could be like a gang of villains right now.
Well, you call it dress code. I call it ignoring the laundry.
Ah, perfect.
I would never have known.
Yeah.
That indeed is very good. Okay. So what were my I suddenly thought of another thing, and now it's gone out of my mind completely, which tells me undoubtedly the show is
It's time to say goodnight.
It's time to say goodnight, my friend.
It's time to fade indeed. Okay, so thanks for watching, everybody. We will hopefully be back same time, same place next week. If you're watching us live, that is noon Pacific time on Sundays over at YouTube, broadcasting from the metaverse here. And yeah, I think that's it. I'd like to thank all my guests. Thanks as always, of course, to James Atloud for not only being here, but also manipulating however many cameras are in that HUD behind the scenes. Thank you, James.
Oh, absolutely, Mal. I enjoyed it a lot.
And thank you to Dave Finch. Thank you, Bane.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here. I had a lot of fun.
Glad to hear it. And thanks as always to Elenor Llewellyn.
Always a pleasure, Mal. Always. You know that, even though I put you off for a month. Sorry.
Yeah, I know that.
Next time, though, no worries, because I won't be moving again.
Yes, that is a good thought. Yeah, we will have to have you on. We will put you on the heavy rotation list.
Okay, it works for me. Works for me.
we'll have you soon, that's for sure. And we'll have a bit of a talk offline about the show we need that you mentioned, and probably OSCC too. So
that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to wish you all a very good morning, a very good afternoon, a very good evening, or indeed a good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. We will return next week. Bye for now.